There's a rumble in the distance, something stirring up the ground. Coffee shops and corner stores, people talking all around. But the words they're speaking softly got a weight that pulls you down. Something's moving through the grapevine, word by word from town to town. And they lean in close to tell you what they heard somebody say. But the truth gets bent and twisted as it travels on its way. Who do you trust? When the talk gets low, who do you trust? When the whispers grow in the halls of power where the secrets flow, who do you trust? Tell me who do you trust? Backroom deals and handshake promises sliding underneath the door. Politicians playing poker with the chips are rich and poor. Every word's a calculation, every pause worth so much more. While the people keep on waiting for the truth they're hungry for. And they lean in close to tell you what they heard somebody say. But the truth gets bent and twisted as it travels on its way. Who do you trust? When the talk gets low, who do you trust? When the whispers grow in the halls of power where the secrets flow, do you trust? Tell me who do you trust? Growing thicker, every lie becomes the truth, and the honest voices calling sound like strangers in the booth. We're all just trying to listen through the static and the noise, but the loudest information drowns out the quieter voice. Who do you trust? When the talk gets low, who you trust? When the whispers grow in the halls of power where the secrets flow, who you trust? Tell me who do you trust? Who you trust? Do you trust? Do you trust? Do you trust? When the whispers grow.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Political Theater, guys. Thank you guys for being here this evening. If you guys are listening to us on X, on Substack, wherever you guys may be listening, make sure you guys share the link out and people know that we are live. Thank you guys for being here. We got a lot to talk about tonight. Got a huge show. We got probably the biggest news day that we've had in quite some time with this new update coming out of Tucker Carlson with the Thomas Crooks story. Obviously, the biggest story today, I would say, by far. Easily the most important story that I've seen Tucker Carlson talk about in the past, 6 months or so. It's very, very interesting stuff coming out. We've already gotten a response out of the FBI for it. But the bigger thing that I want to talk about when it comes to this story is that, to me, it kind of answers a couple questions. And I think it's a logical path that people need to think about here for a minute, because not many people were talking about it. So I brought it up to begin with. That, Tucker, for the past year, everybody, there's no question about it. There's a whole group of people that have been hating Tucker because what Tucker's been talking about when it comes to Israel, and his entire policy his entire attitude has shifted essentially over the past year or so. And I think it's worth mentioning here that, it seems to me that Tucker has an idea in his head that I don't know if it's true or not, but there is a reasoning behind it, and it's worth mentioning. that Tucker might in some way believe that foreign governments may be included within Israel, or maybe just not just Israel, but foreign governments may have been involved in the attempted assassination of President Trump. And he alludes to this in his long video that he did on this. He did about a 30-minute video talking about this, where he talks about, there was this narrative that was pushed out almost immediately after after the attempt failed, right? And then there was this new media narrative that came out talking about how Iran wanted to assassinate Trump, and they may have been part of a plot to assassinate Trump. Now, if you pay attention and you think about that for a minute, regardless of what your opinion is of Tucker, regardless if you think he's right, regardless if you like him, if you care about what he has to say, if you don't care about what he has to say, there is a logic to what he just said. There is a logic to that. It is possible. It is something worth thinking about and worth talking about, which is why I want to bring it up here, because if it's possible that this was a foreign government that was attempting to assassinate President Trump, now I want you to play this out, okay? The long video that he did, he goes through and explains in great detail how the FBI hasn't been forthcoming about the information on Thomas Crooks, how there hasn't been any update to the public about Thomas Crooks, which is all true. That's true. And he goes through these detailed YouTube comments and everything that why wasn't that revealed to us? Further, they also, the idea that the FBI was forthcoming about the fact that he had a large social presence, which is, they said, well, he had limited social presence. And of course, the FBI's counter response, or the rapid response, said, we never said he had no online footprint, but it's just not true. Like, anybody who remembers what they were talking about in Congress, they said that this guy he didn't have much online. He didn't have much information out there, and that's why they couldn't track him digitally. But that's just simply not true. And you can try and pretend it isn't, but it is true. So, it's very annoying listening to people try and argue that these things are not happening, even though they are happening. But regardless of any of that, what Tucker brought up here today is important, because his idea, and I think I see where it's going from, and maybe this explains some of his behavior over the past year. If he believes that a foreign government was involved in the assassination attempt against President Trump, maybe that's what he's so focused on foreign policy for recently. I don't ever really remember Tucker being so focused on foreign policy before, but if he believes that, then maybe that explains it. It gives me a pretty reasonable explanation for it, because here, let me play this out for you. So this is the way I'm thinking about it. If this is even remotely true, and I could be completely wrong, and I might be entirely wrong, but it's worth thinking about for at least a little bit here. So if you were going to be the intelligence agencies that hate Trump, okay, the ones that spent the past 15 years attempting to ruin his life, get him thrown out of everything, make sure he's destroyed. They prosecute him. They throw his business partners in jail. They prosecute his family. They remove his bank accounts. They give him a mug shot while he's running for president. They do all these things. If they were going to take him out, what do you think they could have done to make that setup, right? So think about it in terms of a counter, like an intelligence operation that's designed to take out someone like Trump, okay? If you did that, now, keep in mind that the CNN cameras happened to be at that rally, that they were never at any Trump rally other than that. So happened to be CNN cameras were present at this specific rally, this one rally, they're there, and they catch this entire shot on 4K for everybody to see, and everybody saw it within minutes of it happening. Okay, everyone saw within minutes of it happening. But keep in mind, they missed, but they didn't miss by much. They hit him, okay? Like, if Trump hadn't turned his head, he'd be dead. And everybody knows that. Everybody realizes that. So if you want to think about this with a critical view of what's going on here, think about it like this. If they were going to take out Trump, and they did take out Trump, what would the effect of that be? Okay, do you think the effect would have been, the country goes into a revolt of some kind? Or do you think, if you think that's possible, I would argue that you need to give a little bit more thought to the idea that what if the intelligence agency's long-term narrative on this idea was that if they took out Trump, then the immediate front runner in the race, keep in mind, this is before the convention. Who's the front runner in the race then? None other than Nikki Haley. Raytheon Haley, okay? This is the woman that works for the military-industrial complex. She is paid by these people. She essentially is bought by these people, okay? Like, that's, and no one really argues that, really. So if Nikki Haley is then the Republican frontrunner, and Joe Biden's incompetence got the former president killed, so suddenly Nikki Haley is now in charge of our entire military because she would win the presidency, and then you want to argue to me that she wouldn't want to try and push war with Iran? Are you sure? The military-industrial complex doesn't want to go to war with Iran? Tell me that again with a straight face, please. Please try and argue that that's not what they think they wanted to do. So just think about this for a minute. So just take that back, take that in mind. So if that's possible, then what if Tucker's entire narrative here that he's thinking about is that there's somebody in other foreign governments that knows more about this story than they're letting on, and he's positioned himself against these people for the entire time period leading up to this for that very reason, for that specific reason. Now, I don't know if that's true, but it's definitely worth thinking about, because you can't look at this critically and not come up with that sort of conclusion, because you know it's true. If they had killed Trump live in 4K for the whole country to see, that would have been a 9/11 level moment. That would have had the same sort of national trauma effect on the country. It would have been Charlie Kirk times 10. Okay, everybody knows Trump. It doesn't matter if you think that it wouldn't have happened or wouldn't have done this or wouldn't have done that. There is the possibility that the intention was assassinate Trump, install Nikki Haley, blame Iran, invade Iran. There's your Middle Eastern war. Okay, that is a real thought line that you can't really argue about. So, even if you disagree with the premise, that's still a plausible premise. That's still something that could happen, that could be the case. And the reason that you have these, and by the way, the reason that this all matters is because the FBI has refused to be honest with the American people and be transparent. Okay, if what Tucker says is true, which by all of the reporting that he's done on this, I don't have any reason to doubt this stuff, okay? Where he's talking about the fact that the bodies were burned, that Thomas Crooks' body was burned within 10 days, that the entire cover-up, they never told us about all these social profiles that he had. They didn't mention the fact that there was a guy that was in the background that started communicating with him, and then suddenly he dropped off the map and stopped communicating in public online messaging. Well, I mean, if you guys have been paying attention to some of the accelerationist groups that exist online, if you guys have been listening to what the 764 group does, and groups like this that operate online, they recruit people into violent things, and they draw them in, and then they make them radicalized and get them even more radicalized. Well, what's to say that a foreign government didn't radicalize this guy even further? Okay, and then our government, our corrupt government, let the security lapse getting around Trump so that they could have something like this happen. Okay, these are all real theories. But the real reason that these theories come up, and the real reason that you don't have answers on them, is because the FBI has refused to be transparent with the American people. If you do not be transparent, the void will be filled by something else, and you cannot be surprised when people come up with their own conclusions. So if you lie constantly for years about topics that are super important, somebody fills the void. Now, in Tucker Carlson's case, has he filled the void with the possibility that there are some sort of intelligence agencies that have operated on an international level to take out the president, and they've lied about it and tried to cover it up? I don't know. I think it's worth talking about. It's worth thinking about, because it could be true. It could be true. I mean, I don't believe anybody really thinks, at the end of the day, does anybody honestly, with a straight face, think that this kid just magically was able to climb up to the top of a roof on his own with no help, with no ability to figure this out, and take a shot at the president of the United States? Do you really think that? Really, honestly, you think that? Now, at the beginning of this, when I heard about the initial investigation into President Trump's assassination, my thought process actually kind of landed on the idea that it was intentional incompetence. Okay, so they installed a bad security team around Trump to allow something like this to happen naturally, because somebody's going to attempt to do something, because there's a bunch of nuts, lunatic people out there. But it could have been a lot deeper than that. I mean, it could have been. There's no reason that it has to have just fallen one way. It could have easily been an orchestrated attempt to take out President Trump from the military-industrial complex, or from other intelligence groups, or from the same intelligence groups that opened counterintelligence operations on him while he was the sitting president of the United States. We don't know. And we don't know that. And the FBI, regardless of who's in charge of it right now, is still an insanely corrupt institution. Okay, now, I don't care who's in charge of it. That doesn't mean that the rank and file are giving real information to the top unless they've got the best people. What if the people are lying to them? We don't know that. So in response to this, Kash Patel puts out a big, long statement today saying that they reviewed, thousands of this and thousands of that and tons of witnesses and 400 and blah, 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 blah. They went through all this stuff. Well, why didn't you say that before? Why don't we know that? Why? Why doesn't anybody already know that information? Why is that? Okay, and further than that, if what Tucker is also saying is true, that they've not given the information, those specific files, those specific forensic reports have not been reviewed by Congress yet, why is that? Why is that? Well, why aren't we getting more information about one of the most important things that has ever happened in this country, the attempted assassination of a presidential candidate during the middle of a presidential run? Okay, that is just, it's not something that's going to just disappear. People aren't just going to ignore it. You're going to have to answer it. And the fact that we haven't gotten answers yet within 10 months, you can't be surprised when people start filling that void with their own answers. People are going to do it. It's the same thing with the pipe bomb story. The pipe bomb story is the exact same problem. There is no way you can't figure out who that person is. There's no way. Okay, to try and convince everybody that you can't figure out who this person is in Washington, D.C., when you were identifying people in the crowd that were there for 8 seconds on their cell phone or not even on a cell phone and they had masks on their face and you managed to kick their doors in, there's no way you missed this person and you can't figure out who they are. So, at the end of the day, the biggest problem is, again, that the FBI is a corrupt institution that is not honest with the American people. And it doesn't matter who's in charge of it because the structure of the FBI itself clearly has a problem with being dishonest with the American people. And they have for, their entire the existence, really, which is what my argument has always been against the FBI and why I don't like the FBI. The FBI did Waco. The FBI did Ruby Ridge. Stories that people don't know about. The Finders Files, that's a whole nother story. My favorite line in the Finders Files is, quote, did the FBI accidentally create a satanic cult that kidnaps children? Whoa, that's a line. That's a real comment from in the FBI's Finder Files that were released in 2017, okay? Like, guys, the FBI has a very, very long history of covering shit up. Okay, it's not like this is a new thing. It's not like this is just something that's going to come in and Cash and Dan are going to be able to redo the entire institution overnight. Now, but the difference is that right now we have the opportunity to demand those answers, and I don't care. There's the comment of that we need to protect the rank and file of the FBI. I disagree now. Okay, I don't care anymore. You need to answer the questions that the people need. Okay, the people have lots of questions. You need to start answering them. Okay, you can't keep doing this after we pressure you, then you finally release something and then tell us that, well, we did all these interviews and all this stuff and we finally got all this information out there. We just do, but we're just now telling you only after somebody else releases new information that no one else knew. Only after that is when this comes out. That's the problem. That's the problem. We had to pressure the information out of Cash for him to even push that information out. Why is that? Why? Why are we waiting around to get this information? Stop playing this game and just give the information out there so people stop coming up with their own answers to it. Because to me, I came up with this theory about Tucker and the idea that there's a possible plot to assassinate the president within the military-industrial complex. That took me about 4 minutes to come to that conclusion after I saw that, okay? It's not complicated to think about. It's not a complicated theory. It's a logical progression. If they took out the president, how did they fill the void? They use it as a 9/11 moment. The entire country's in a trauma. They blame it on another country, and then we are invading the Middle East again, and suddenly there's another forever war. Okay? Like, guys, if you don't think that they would have done that, I disagree. Okay? I mean, it's just long narratives from the intelligence community that are just, they hate Trump anyway. They don't like what's going on around the country. They don't like what he's done to them. If you don't think that they would have been willing to go that far, I just disagree entirely. And this is what I've said for months is that, all of the stuff that you're learning about what the intelligence community did to Trump, okay, the intelligence assessment that Obama ordered that intentionally came up with false information, all of this stuff, you think that they weren't willing to go that far? Then maybe you should go review all of the documents and how we got here in the first place. You don't think that they're willing to go that far? They were opening counterintelligence operations on a sitting president. Okay, so if there's no answers to be had, then people are going to come up with their own answers. And that's how we get here. So that's what Tucker released today. And I'm going to play a couple clips from that, and we can talk about them a little bit. We can go through them a little bit. But thank you guys for being here this evening. This is The Political Theater, weeknights at 9. I'm your host, Walter Kurt. Thank you guys for showing up this evening. So let's get into some of this stuff with Tucker, because some of this stuff I think is super important. And it's just, there's a number of clips here, and we'll even go back and I'll explain how I landed the theory that I got to today. So this is the first clip, and this goes through what the initial findings were from, a second here, I got to pull up there we go, screen, this one, share, there we go. So this is the initial
These remarks were especially notable because they came at the final phase of Crooks's YouTube commenting. At that point, a new character emerged into the conversation, a user named Willie Tepes, who started pressuring Crooks to commit violence. For example, quote, "If a gun and a badge is all that is needed, then authority obviously comes from the barrel of a gun. We have more guns than they do. There is no way we can avoid a war at this point, so you better just get used to the idea. We have nothing to lose and everything to win. And the alternative, a global police state, is unacceptable. Nothing in life is simple, but that is no argument against doing it." So who is this Willie Tepes? Unfortunately, we don't know. The FBI hasn't made any mention of him in public, although they certainly know he exists. Just days after the shooting, somebody screenshotted Tepes' YouTube account page, despite the fact he had very few followers. To the extent that he can be traced online now, you can find his username being used on a foreign Antifa website. Those sites link him to the Nordic Resistance Movement, which has been designated a terrorist group by the U.S. State Department. That's all we know. We do know, however, that Crooks' online footprint abruptly ends after his encounter with this mysterious figure, Willie Tepes. Regardless of whoever Willie Tepes is or was and what his motives may have been, who he may have been working for, there is no doubt that Crooks was ripe for recruitment by someone. From early 2019 to mid-2020, as his political views were evolving, Crooks searched for Trump more than 700 times online. He also searched for Jack Ruby, the man who assassinated Lee Harvey Oswald. He then submitted queries for craziest chemical reactions, cars running over protesters, best places for mass shooting El Paso, Trump Civil War, Orlando shooting reaction, firing an AR-15 as fast as possible, fertilizer bomb, how to make napalm, how to make a Molotov cocktail, mass shooting Canada, Oklahoma bombing, and sniper in Dallas shooting. He also searched for American Nazi Party, German National Anthem 1933-1945, Hitler's speeches with subtitles, neo-Nazis, and, quote, why gays need to go. So here you have a volatile, troubled, possibly mentally ill young man.
So before we continue with this, and there's more to talk about when it comes to this clip, but before we even get into that, in the next section of this, how you're going to the FBI cover-up part of this, it's worth noting that if you guys follow 0 Hour, I don't know if you guys know that account, I recommend you go check that out. He immediately went and pulled information and found a whole bunch of stuff on this guy, Willie Tepes. He found it almost immediately. And that's, if you guys know anything about 0 Hour's account, that's what he focuses on. He's like an analyst about that sort of stuff. So he went and immediately pulled this guy's information, and he's got a whole bunch of posts about it today. So go check that out, because he's talking about it, saying this is a neo-Nazi, in a foreign national neo-Nazi accelerationist group, essentially. And he figured that out almost immediately. So, this again leads you to the same sort of conclusion that there's a problem. Why don't we know this stuff? Why don't we know this? Why don't they tell us anything? Why are they still not giving the people information about this stuff? Why is that happening? And that's why we're landed in this scenario in the first place, which is where you lead to Trump, where you lead to Tucker saying about it's an FBI cover-up, because at this point, I think anybody that believes that this kid did this all on his own with no help and no one taught him how to do this, no one did all this is just not true. Okay, it's just not true. And we just need to get through this and get to the point where people stop letting the FBI get away with this stuff. And I don't care who's in charge. I don't care. Okay, I don't care if you personally looked at this stuff. Who compiled the information for you? Did you go do the research yourself? Did they look at it yourself? Like, did you do it on your own? Or did you have your team or somebody within the FBI go look at FBI files? I just disagree. I think you need to go look at it again. Okay, I mean, that's the way I look at it, because Tucker's argument about it being a cover-up makes a whole lot of sense, and we'll go into a little bit of this here.
With a long record of espousing violence in public. The FBI clearly knew he existed. And then you have, at the very end of his years commenting in public, espousing violence, in exchange with a mysterious figure affiliated with a group that we know is being monitored by the U.S. State Department. It turns out that around the same time that Thomas Crooks was making these searches and posting overt threats of violence against public figures on YouTube, the FBI was issuing contracts to private sector tech surveillance firms to harness the power of mass data collection tools that would monitor social media for people just like Thomas Crooks. It's hard to imagine that Thomas Crooks, who was making these posts publicly and in his own name, had not been identified and looked at closely by federal law enforcement. In fact, it's impossible to imagine. What do we know? Well, we know that the FBI had access to these YouTube comments, and rather than giving us valuable information about them, giving us a sense of why Thomas Crooks did what he did, they used a selective read of those comments to lie about what Thomas Crooks was thinking. 2.5 weeks after the attack on July 30th, a source familiar with the investigation told CNN that, quote, federal investigators are looking into a YouTube account possibly connected to Crooks in which the user espoused political violence as well as anti-Semitic and anti-immigration themes. Well, of course, it wasn't possibly connected to Thomas Crooks, as the FBI knew full well it was Thomas Crooks' account. There was never any question about that. And yet the same day, the FBI's then deputy director made the same dishonest claim before Congress. The week previous, then FBI Director Christopher Wray publicly questioned whether Trump was even shot.
With respect to former President Trump, there's some question about whether or not it's a bullet or shrapnel that hit his ear.
In February 2025, the New York Post reported that, quote, the FBI has obstructed efforts to solve the mystery of why Thomas Matthew Crooks, who left no manifesto, did what he did. And this fact, said the Post, left local law enforcement as well as Crooks' former friends, classmates, and teachers frustrated. The level of lying and obstruction is shocking. Less than a month after the shooting, Congressman Clay Higgins of Louisiana, a former police officer, traveled to Butler to conduct his own investigation into what happened. When he arrived, he discovered a disturbing fact. The FBI released Crooks' body for cremation 10 days after July 13th. This wasn't known to the public until Higgins arrived in Butler on August 5th, when the coroner told the congressman, quote, he would never have released Crooks' body to the family for cremation or burial without specific permission from the FBI. The timing of Crooks' cremation is notable. The day Crooks' body was burned was also the day the House Homeland Security and Oversight Committees had begun their investigations into the shooting. The fact the body was cremated made it impossible for investigators outside the FBI to verify the coroner and autopsy report. You can't do a new tox screen because the body doesn't exist.
So this is, again, where you get into the point where there's too many things that line up for this to just be some simple event. And this is what Tucker's argument is. And I think it's a strong argument. I mean, if this stuff hadn't happened the way that it did, you could make a different argument, but you can't really make a different argument if this is how you go about it. That the body was cremated, that there's if you go watch the full clip on this, and I recommend everyone go watch the whole thing for yourselves because it's pretty compelling. Everything that he goes through is very detailed. This has got to be the most substantive reporting that Tucker's done in a long time. Okay, like this is probably one of the most important things he's released in this year by far, because he goes into the details of how the FBI, for some reason, they came and scrubbed the crime scene themselves. Why did they do that? Why did they release the body so early? Why did no one know about it? And why did they lie? I mean, Christopher Wray, I'd forgotten about that clip until I saw him say this earlier when Christopher Wray said, well, there's question whether or not it was a bullet or shrapnel. Like, everybody saw what happened. What do you mean shrapnel? Shrapnel from what? I mean, it's absurd that this is the kind of argument that they made, but this is the FBI that was in charge before. And this is the FBI that, if you want to try and tell me that these people may not have been interested in taking out President Trump, then come on, people. I don't know what to tell you to wake you up on that. If they were willing to go as far as they had, why would they not? And there was many people that even said that it was possible that they were going to try and take out President Trump. Now, and this is what gets into the next part of the argument, which is what my argument was originally, talking about the idea of this Iran story. Because this Iran story in this is another important piece of this, because where did this come from is what my point is. Because what would the argument be? Why would it just randomly be Iran starts talking about they're going to try and take out President Trump when who were the people that were aligned against Trump more than anybody? Not just foreign countries, okay? Like foreign countries, leave that out of it for a minute. Who was already trying to take out Trump? Who was already trying to prosecute him? Who was already trying to throw him in jail? Who had spent the past year doing anything they could to keep him from being on the ballot? Who was doing that? That's not Iran doing that, people. That's the government. That's our government. That's the Biden administration that was doing that. Okay, so if you think that it's impossible, then just think about this for a minute. So,
U.S. intelligence officials started leaking about a supposed plot by the Iranian government to kill Trump. There was never any evidence, but if you were planning a regime change war against Iran, you might claim otherwise.
Let me read to you this breaking news that we are reporting from 3 U.S. officials who have been briefed on the matter. The U.S. obtained intelligence in recent weeks about an Iranian plot to assassinate Donald Trump.
So that's what I'm talking about. So, and I remember this story. I remember the Iranian plot to assassinate President Trump that they came out with. And this came out after the assassination attempt. And there was also Sean Ryan came out and said that there was an Iranian, that they said that they had managed to get surface-to-air missiles over the southern border, and they were going to try and take out President Trump's jet. That's another story that people didn't talk about. That was another thing that came out, and that was directly linked to Iran. And if you guys don't remember those stories, those were circulating widely, okay? So where did that stuff all come from? Why does that matter? Why does that link it to it? And if you think about the concept that I brought up at the beginning, that what would they have done if they had managed to take him out? What would have been the result if they had managed to take him out? Who would have been the front runner? J.D. Vance isn't in the picture yet, people. This is before the convention. This is before the convention. This is before the running mates are announced. The next thing that would have happened, if you think about it logically, is that Nikki Haley would have ended up being the Republican nominee. Okay? She was already had billions of backers. Why was she still in the primary in the first place? She was losing. She was losing the primary. Why? Why was she still part of it? Why did she stay in so long? Guys, it's worth thinking about, okay? I mean, it doesn't mean that it's true. It doesn't mean that that's a fact and that this all makes sense, but you can't ignore things that are possible just because you dislike the person that's saying it, okay? And this is, if you want to argue that this isn't possible, I don't know. You're welcome to come up here and have an argument with me, and you're welcome to come up here and join the show. You can come to x.com, and you can go to @WCDispatch, and we can talk about it. But I think it's a reasonable idea, and it doesn't mean that it makes sense and doesn't mean that it's true, but it's definitely possible. It's 100% possible. And again, this is all a result of the FBI lying to us. And Christopher Wray, I mean, I had forgotten all about that when he went so far as to say that he wasn't even sure it was a bullet. I mean, that's how dishonest the FBI is, okay? It's somewhere where, we have witnesses on the ground. There were people at the Trump rally that were pointing at this guy as he was climbing up there with a gun. They saw him. There's video of it, and he still sits in front of Congress and says it's a question if it's a bullet or not. These are the people that you're trying to say they were forthcoming? Sure. I mean, like, that's definitely true. They didn't try to cover anything up. That didn't happen. Like, I mean, are you kidding me? Come on, people. I mean, this just, you have to take some sort of critical analysis. If these people wanted to take out Trump, what would have been the next step? What would they have done with that? What would they have spun the narrative? How would they have used that trauma to their benefit? And if the intelligence agencies that were running the country, because, no one believes that Biden was doing anything. The dude was dead. Okay, so whoever was running the country on behind the scenes and running the auto pen, I think you need to make a real serious analysis, the fact that it's very possible that they intentionally tried to do all this, that it was all orchestrated from the beginning, and that this has been an extensive cover-up. And now we're in a scenario where Cash and Dan are in at the FBI, and maybe what they have is they did a huge cover-up afterwards. Do you think between the time that this happened and they failed, right? So the shot misses. The shot misses by millimeters, people. By millimeters. That's the one thing I want to tell people. Say that, I had someone argue me earlier that they were saying, well, what do you mean this was this was an inept attempt if they did? What do you mean inept? They almost did it. The millimeters, people. The first bullet would have gone right through his head if he hadn't turned his head at the exact moment that he did. Trump is dead. Trump is dead, and what happens to the country? That's not an inept attempt. That is a very, very, very close attempt. That is a miracle that it didn't happen in the first place, which is why people say it was divine intervention that it didn't happen in the first place. So if you think about that, you have to play out what the next results of that would have been. And where do you go with that? Tucker has an idea. And it's not far-fetched. It's not a far-fetched idea. Is it right? I don't know. No one knows. No one has any idea if it's true or not, but it's definitely worth thinking about. And that's why I wanted to bring it up today. So if you guys would like to come up and make comments on this, and obviously I do read all the comments throughout the show. So if you guys are on any of the streams, and you are welcome to make a comment anywhere you would like. And if you want to come up here and join the show and you want to talk about this, you are welcome to do so. Just go to x.com and hit @WCDispatch and join the show, and you can come up here and make comments all you want. I'm bringing up one person now. Southern Belle is coming up here, and she can ask and make any comments she wants. And anybody else in the show, if you would like to come up here and request, you can do so now. So what's up, Southern?
Great. How are you, Walt?
I'm doing just fine.
Well, I have to say, I think I'm on the same path as you, because here's what disturbed me the whole time about Butler. Jill Biden, at the last minute, decided to attend an Italian dinner. They pulled off some of Trump's Secret Service and
Yep.
replaced them. Secondly, Trump changed in his speech when he showed that diagram, and I wonder, hmm, they have to set it up, and they know his speech that he does. He does go off the teleprompter, but he did have a pattern with that. He decided to do that early. If y'all remember, he goes, "Wait a minute, let me show it to you," because one of his people actually did, as they call it, the big beautiful graph. And that concerned me. Also, the Butler police were not briefed by the Secret Service. They always come in and bring them into a gathering to brief, to cover. They didn't do that at all. And Nikki Haley showed up at the last minute at the national convention for the Republicans, and she said she was asked to come by Trump. She looks at Trump. The camera goes to Trump. He's got one of his grandkids in his lap, and he's shaking his head saying, "No, I didn't." Um, I don't like Nikki Haley. She is definitely a neocon, and she is a problem. But there is no way this kid pulled this off. We have recordings of people behind Trump videoing him running across the roof. That is disturbing. And what today, we still don't know anything. It's very concerning. But the last person they wanted in office is Trump. Endless wars. This is what takes care of the big players, and all the elected members are there to support them. So this is scary. This is really scary, Walt.
It is. I mean, but the deal is, it's not that it's just scary. It's that when you look at the scenario, and like you brought up a bunch of really good important points about Nikki Haley in this scenario, which, again, my thought is you just have to think about it analytically and ignore all of the problems that people have with Tucker Carlson. Because if Tucker Carlson's thought process is focused on this idea that there's other people that were involved in the attempted assassination plot against President Trump, that explains a whole lot of behavior. That's what my point is. It explains a whole lot of behavior from Tucker Carlson, where he suddenly is super involved in foreign policy and talking about foreign policy and really focused on Iran for some reason. Why is he so focused on Iran for some reason? All of these things make sense if you think about it from this scenario. And it's there, you can't argue that there is a possibility that this is true. I mean, it doesn't mean that it is, and that there could be other explanations, and you can argue and yell and scream about it all you want, but the thing is, you have to think about it. You got to think about it at least a little bit, because if that was the intention, and everybody knows that this whole thing never made sense from the beginning, that it was obviously some sort of setup, and that it was obviously not just this kid managing to get away with it, then you have to play out the rest of the scenario. And if you're Tucker Carlson and you believe that it's not just a foreign government, but it's foreign intelligence agencies that worked with us that were corrupt agencies, if he thinks that it's some sort of an interest in the Israelis, how would you attack that? Okay, so you spend the next year going against the Israelis for whatever reason, and you make it very well known that you don't like their governments and you don't like what they're doing, and every time you bring up Iran, you don't want us to get involved in a war. Well, why would you be so focused on the idea of us getting involved in a war with Iran? Well, if you think that the intention was to take out Trump so that we would start a war with Iran, then again, that once again makes sense. Okay, it makes sense. It answers questions. It answers questions that people don't want to talk about, but I think it's worth mentioning. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. Chris, you joined the show. What is happening, my friend?
Hey, man. Sorry, I had a dinner with my daughter, who's turning 16 on Sunday. So had a good, daddy-daughter date, and that was fun. So I wanted to chime in real quick on this topic because a couple of things on it. One, you are right, Walter, that it would explain a lot of Tucker's change in focus in some ways. That would explain a lot. But a couple of things I don't think people fully realize. One, first off, I, from day one, have said I do not believe it was Thomas Crooks, because having been a contractor for over a decade, that metal roof, it was, people forget, it was 98 degrees actual temperature, 109 degrees heat index at this rally, which means that roof was probably 143
Yeah,
degrees in
exactly.
temperature, and he's in a t-shirt and shorts laying on a roof that entire time, there's no way in heck you're going to make me buy that, because I have been on scorching hot metal roofs. No way ever will you get anybody that understands contracting to buy into that narrative. The other thing, and I can tell you with definitive 150% fact, okay, um, that was not all Secret Service. Secret Service were guarding Trump, but they changed the detail or in advance of that event. The perimeter was not just Butler Police; it was actually Homeland Security uh, officers. So this is the kicker right here, though. So Mayorkas switched everything up, put Homeland Security officers on the perimeter. They did not brief the Butler PD. And on top of that, the perimeter officers reporting to in the Department of Homeland Security officers didn't even have access to communicate to Secret Service. They actually had to call a dispatch line, and the dispatch line had to call to the lead agent on Secret Service, who then had to report whatever the situation was. That is totally not protocol. It was changed for that event. I know that to be 100% fact. And so that's, for me, what's always been the red flag on this story. And it would make sense, and my final point, it would make sense that this was going on and they were going to, because keep in mind, you had Alex Jones, Roger Stone, and Steve Bannon all confirming that there were multiple Iranian hit squads and other foreign intelligence squads that were chasing, that were basically Donald Trump was facing threats, like very real threats, hit squads designed to get him before he got to the finish line. And so, who were those squads other than Iran? What
Well, and
what
this
nations
is
were
what my argument is here, Chris. Like, so how does Steve Bannon and all those people know that, right? And this is where I get into the point where what I've been talking about. You know, if the intention was to take out Trump and then have the immediate response, they blame it on, who do they blame it on? They blame it on Iran. And then you use it as a 9/11 style moment to get us back into a war with Iran. Who is the president then? The president then, as a result of Trump's assassination, who is the president then? Nikki Haley was the other Republican frontrunner. They would have blamed the assassination on Biden's incompetence and his failed government. Then Biden loses. Nikki Haley is Raytheon Haley becomes the president of the United States. And then suddenly we're blaming Iran for it. Who thinks that we're not going to be hitting Iran almost immediately afterwards? It's a logical conclusion.
And it's also, if we know to be the fact that we had Autopin running the country.
Yes,
it's also
exactly.
a very real scenario that they invoke an executive order, emergency orders, and completely stop the election. And Autopin goes into 2025.
Yep. I mean, and this is what my point is. I mean, who is running the country other than, you know, the people behind the scenes, really, right? I mean, because Biden's not doing anything. He's dead. I mean, Biden's been dead. In fact, he's not even been president anymore. I love that they just don't even, they forget he even exists now. They don't even talk about Biden anymore. Biden wasn't the president. He's just the dash between 45 and 47. That's all he was. But just thinking about this logically, if you want to think about why everyone has wondered why Tucker Carlson has had such a major focus on foreign policy, well, what if this is why? What if this is the explanation why he was so interested in it? Because if he thinks that there's some explanation that is to do with the military industrial complex getting us into a war in Iran, it explains the behavior. It does. It explains it. Even if you don't like the answer, that's still true. And, you know, I know that the pro-Israeli people that are going to come out and say, well, there's no way that Israel would want us to be involved in Iran in anything to do with this. Israel wouldn't want anything to do. Guys, if you think that there's not aspects within the Israeli government who would want a war with Iran, you're fooling yourselves. Okay, like that's just not true. There's some people over there that I guarantee you that they would want that, and I guarantee you there's some people that are corrupt enough that they would look at it as a money grab for themselves. You can't think that everybody's just all above board all the time. It doesn't necessarily mean that the Israeli government was involved in it. That's not necessary to believe that, but there's no reason to believe that there couldn't be the corrupt people over there, okay? Like, you have to remember the same time period. You also, this is, you know, around the same, like, era that people were trying to get rid of Netanyahu. Okay, so don't forget that just before October 7th, they were desperately trying to overthrow Netanyahu with color revolutions. Okay, so let's not pretend this isn't a possibility. That the people that didn't like Netanyahu and didn't like this, like, guys, all of this is possible. I mean, it's something you can all think about. And again, there's no reason you can't have an analytical framework that you come up with that makes this explanation a little bit clearer. And I know, like, it's a complicated idea, but so is the idea that they would have taken out President Trump. I mean, the fact that there was a kid that made it onto the roof in the first place, that is a complicated idea. And, like, I don't know if it was him or not, but I definitely agree with the idea that if that roof was 140 degrees, there ain't no way he's crawling across it in a T-shirt. I know that. Okay, that's not true. The entire aspect of the way that the security was set up didn't make any sense. There's also the fact that the drone surveillance wasn't running for some reason during this time period. There were a number of things that all lead in this same direction, that there was more than a plot, and then this has been a massive cover-up since then. Okay, I mean, it is the most plausible explanation at this point, and I don't like that the FBI, and, I understand that they have a job to do, and I understand that they can say whatever they want, and they have to say whatever they need to say, but I'll tell you right now, I was not, even sort of dissuaded from my theory that I just presented here this evening when Kash Patel came out and told us how many places they'd interviewed and how many people they had looked at. Well, if that was the case, then why doesn't anybody know all that stuff? And why hasn't the House Oversight gotten access to the forensic reports yet? Why hasn't that happened? Why? What's the holdup? What's the holdup? I don't understand. And the other part of it, if it's true that they cremated the body so you can't get a tox screen, you can't get another report on it, you can't get another, how is it possible that a person who almost assassinated the president of the United States, that body isn't still in a morgue somewhere right now? That would be my argument. Really. Like, come on, people. You think that you shoot the president and then you immediately get taken out and then your body just gives back to your family within a week? Come on. There's probably murder plots and murder assassination, like things that have happened where they've still got the body from random gangbangers on the street hanging out in the morgue so they can use it for future parts of their investigation. And they cremate the body within a week of the one that nearly killed the president? You've got to be joking me. You got to be kidding.
And Walter, and the other thing I want to say is this is all entirely plausible. And the other equally plausible scenario is the same leadership and bureaucratic little authoritarians that shut down the world economy over a lie, the origin of COVID, right? They shut the world economy down and continue to shut it down when Biden got into office. Okay. Those same people would have absolutely taken this scenario had it gone the other direction, which would have been a horrendous thing for our country. And they would have taken that opportunity to suspend the right to bear arms, they would have tried martial law. They would have done all of those things under emergency actions. Unfortunately, with the Patriot Act, they would have had the ability to do some of those things. And people want me to believe that, like, these Republicans in the United States Senate are going to be like, no, you're absolutely not. You know what I mean? Like, give me a break.
This is the whole point, right? Like, if you think that this stuff isn't possible, then I don't know what world you're living in, because it's not the same one that I'm living in. I'm living in the world where they were already trying anything they could do to stop Trump. They were desperate to get rid of Trump. They hated him so much that they let all this stuff happen in the first place. They brought all these investigations against him. They destroyed his businesses. They destroyed his business partners. They put him in a mugshot. Guys, if you don't think that they were not, if you don't feel like they were willing to go all the way, then what is it going to take to get you to believe that they were willing to go all the way? I guess is what my argument would be. What is it? What do you need to go ahead?
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry to mean to Trump and his family were debanked.
Yes, that's what my point is. Okay, like my point is exactly that they were going so far. Why would they not go even further? Like, is there any evidence? And this is, I guess, the best way to think about this. Is there any evidence to suggest that they were not willing to go that far? Is there? Is there a single piece of evidence from anybody? All right, hold on here. Fed Up with Media, you have your hand up. Go right ahead.
Yeah, well, and I think you hit a key point of, how they get away with some of this is because, we've got a whole group of people that aren't willing, like you said, to look at, oh, well, this government may have bad actors in it. This government may have bad actors in it. We had Joe Biden for president. We had Merrick Garland running our DOJ. Why would we not think similar things could be going on in any other government in this country? None of them are sacred cows. Look what's going on in Britain and Germany. And I mean, Germany,
this is exactly right,
opponents dropping over dead.
This is again the point, right? Like, there's AFD members that they've killed like 30 of them. All right. And it's like that. Do you think this stuff isn't possible, guys? I know people like to believe that we live in this world where, all of the things of the past don't happen anymore. Where we don't assassinate political leaders anymore, where people aren't plotting to try and do bad and evil things to our country on a regular basis. But we need to return to reality, where the reality is that this is the way the world has always been. It's just because we lived in a small lull where things weren't like this happen. I mean, guys, when Reagan was shot in the street, okay, like this is stuff like this happens. Okay, but the plots against people. Does anybody believe that JFK was just a normal assassination? Everyone's all on board on that one too, right? Everyone. There's not been any conspiracy that this has been a plot from our CIA at all, right? No one thinks that. Everyone's just on the same page that, JFK, just a random dude took him out. No, there's no weird stuff around that one, right? Like, come on. Like, if you think that we're just going to buy this right now with all of the evidence that everybody knows and everybody's seen, and with obvious evidence that the FBI tried to cover it up from the beginning, with Christopher Wray telling us that he wasn't even trying to be shot in the first place, it was a piece of shrapnel. Come on, guys. Come on. So, this is the deal. And this is why I wanted to bring all this up tonight, because obviously this is a huge story. And obviously Tucker is onto something. And if he has a theory that the intention was to try and push us into some sort of regime war or some sort of Middle Eastern war again, that makes a whole lot of sense and explains a whole lot of things. So I've got a couple more requests here. I'm going to bring a couple people up and we're going to keep talking about this. But go ahead, Southern, you can go ahead now, and then I've got two other requests coming up.
Just a quick point. I forgot about this and I looked it up just to make sure. Thomas Crooks' house, his parents' house where he lived, was completely scrubbed clean. Well, this is bizarre.
I mean, there's all sorts of stuff that's bizarre about it. I mean, it's not just that. It's not just that.
Yeah,
I mean, like
it's a lot.
I mean, again, this is the point of the cover up. Okay, there is a lot of evidence that suggests that there is more to the story, and that it does. I don't care if you want to come out and tell us that there isn't, because sorry. You're not gonna sell it to anybody. Okay, we got two new speakers up here. Oh, I'm sorry. One of them is just Jack Tron. Jack Tron, you can chime in whenever you want, bud. The other one is Lisa Rorick. What's up?
Well, you got to think they're still trying to stop Trump.
That's right. I mean, of course they are. Everyone seems to forget this. That it's not like everything has gone well for this administration. Okay, they've got the entire court system has been weaponized against him. And my argument, in the way I've said it to people here recently, is that they couldn't handcuff Trump, they couldn't stop him, they couldn't kill him. So what are they doing now? They're going to try and handcuff his agenda and wait out the clock. I think that's the next phase of this. So at some point, we need to start figuring out how we're going to solve that problem.
Yeah, I trust this administration in surrounding themselves with some of the smartest people there was. I also trust the instincts of these folks. So I see like Gary Cardone in the audience, Walter, by the way. Shout out to Gary and his brother. But they were warning everybody about the things that this past administration was hiding when it came to the commercial situation. The mortgage problems on the commercial side, the economic things, what we're seeing with this overreaching government. All of these things. You go to Elon, look at all the things he was talking about. I mean, you go to even though I have some issues with the technocrats with big tech, Mark Andreessen was like, dude, they came in and they said, no, you're going to fall in line or else we're going to completely kill your business. And that's why they all started supporting Trump, allegedly, as the story goes. So everything on every ounce of writing on the wall says that this administration was willing to do anything possible. Keep in mind, people forget there was a national memo that went out to blue counties in blue cities telling them to create quarantine camps using the polio situation in the early 1900s as the loophole to do it. They were going to create quarantine camps in this country had people not blown the whistle on it. And so this was very real. Even in the Midwest, this was going to happen. I actually sent the memo to a reporter, a news guy like Pete Mundo or whatever, and it went around and it stopped what they were going to try to do. But they tried to do it in Florida. They tried to do it in other areas. That's how I knew about it. And um, so they were willing to go to the extra mile. And the problem is I think finally Europe's going to start waking up to this. But these so-called democratic countries in the EU have been ran by literal authoritarians, communist authoritarians. These people, you look at the digital bill, like if you even speak out against something, they're going to prison. If they post something on social media, they're going to jail.
That's right.
It's insane. And they wanted to pass that here in this country. And had Trump not survived that situation, and had Trump not won the election in a massive he won it in a landslide, thank goodness, because it was just too big to steal. But they were going to do everything they could to stop. And I do believe I did see somewhere, and I'll have to go look, Walter. I'll have to go look at it. I'll have to go, send you the link when I find it. But there was an attempt, allegedly, as it goes, there was an attempt to try to pull a 2020, but it got blocked in another country. I think it was in Poland or somewhere, Portugal maybe. I guess basically there was a internal war in the intelligence community, right? And they stopped an attempt to try to do the same thing in 2024. Now, fortunately, he had a massive landslide, given that he survived by literally a centimeter. He survived, and of course, he skyrocketed, and momentum went on his side. But they were going to do those things. We were going to lose our most important rights. And people quickly forget, after 10 months, how dangerous of a situation we were in this country. Like, it was not just a bunch of, hyperbolic language. When you have an administration with Democrats, like from the Kennedy family and Tulsi, who ran the DNC in 2016, these people, Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, these people are all Democrats at one point that are like, whoa, this party's out of control. You're hearing Bill Maher today. They still haven't even learned their lessons from 2024 and these things. They want power more than ever before. I do think going into the midterms, things are going to continue to get escalated. They want power back.
Yeah, and that's what my thing is here. Like, if you really think about it, the entire story here, going all the way back to the beginning of this, if you think they weren't willing to go all the way to make some sort of orchestrated deep plot to be able to take this guy out, to take President Trump out, and make sure they set it up so that they'd be able to get us into some sort of conflict again, and use it as a 9/11 style moment, use the trauma to be able to push us into something further, then I don't know why you would not argue that that's possible. It's definitely possible. Okay, and just because you don't like what Tucker has been doing for the past year doesn't mean this wasn't a very important revelation today, that all of this stuff has been hidden from us. And why has it been hidden from us is what I think the real deal is, that they still haven't answered the questions. Okay, they still haven't brought this stuff forward, and they have to. They have to, because if they're not going to be honest with us and tell us what's really going on, and I don't want to hear the argument that, oh, well, the people won't like that and people might be upset about it, like it's too big, it's too serious, it's too, like, I'm so sick of government officials telling us what the American people are like going to be able to handle. Okay, like are you kidding me? After all the crap that has happened over the past few years, you think we can't handle handle this? What you need to do is you just need to tell the truth. You have to. You have to tell the truth. You have to tell the American people the whole truth. Every single aspect of it. You should release if there's a whole bunch of classified stuff about this, declassify every single bit of it and make us read it. Okay? They just put it out there. Stop screwing around. That's why I didn't like when Cash responded to this almost immediately, and he puts out this long statement about all the things that they did, all the interviews that they did, all the stuff that they talked to, all the stuff they reviewed, and all this blah, 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 blah. Well, one, why didn't we already know that? Why didn't we already know that? That's new information as of today. After this story comes out, you then tell us that. So that's a problem, one. But two, why doesn't the House Oversight have these files already? Why don't we have the forensic reports? Why don't we have the tox screens? Why don't we have all this stuff? Why did you cremate the body? All of that stuff needs to be answered. Now, I understand entirely that if this was truly a plot from our own government to take out President Trump, that they had from the moment that they failed up until the moment that he was inaugurated to orchestrate their cover-up to the best of their ability, and they will absolutely bury it and get rid of all the evidence as best they possibly could. I understand all that. I get that. But that doesn't mean you can't run down some leads here. And what Tucker put out today is the best lead that I've seen in any of this since this started. The first time in over a year that we've actually seen any real information come out about this story. I feel like it's all pretty relevant. And I feel like the American people should have known about this stuff. If you were going to try and take out the president and you do fail, I think all of this stuff should be public information. And I'm tired of just trying to say, we can't just be, he's just some lone kid that managed to climb up there and get away with this. Oh, and by the way, we don't have any, he had a limited social media profile, even though he didn't. Okay. Even though, his entire, like all of these people around him, somehow no one knew what was going on. Like, guys, come on. None of this makes any sense. So, and this isn't even going into the other assassination plot against President Trump that I feel like we haven't gotten full answers on. Okay. So it just keeps going. Like, and that's why the FBI, I don't care if you guys don't like that you're getting bad PR. The FBI's credibility has been at the floor for years now. The only way you fix that is you have to hold people accountable. Okay. If there's people that were involved in this and they screwed the investigation up, they should be fired. Okay. If they were part of this and there was some sort of a failed cover up or whatever it may be, they should be fired. Okay. Anybody that was associated with should be fired. And I know they did fire a bunch of people, but you want to try and tell me that the entire upper echelon of the FBI didn't know exactly what was going on here, or that they didn't have some more detailed information? I mean, Christopher Wray essentially lied to Congress. I think he did. He knew a lot more than he let on in his interviews that they talked about. That's pretty obvious at this point. So maybe you need to haul Christopher Wray's ass back in there. He can bring his Tommy gun with him. I don't know if you guys know that when he left he was given a Tommy gun on his way out the door, and I thought that was perfect. What a perfect parting gift from the DOJ. His capo gave him his personal Tommy gun to the Dobby the Nose, Dobby the Nose Christopher Wray. I mean, it's the most ridiculous thing ever. I don't know if you guys even saw that when he was retiring from the FBI. They literally gave him a Tommy gun. I thought it was the most fitting thing ever because these guys were gangsters while they were in office. They were absolute gangsters. So that's it, to me. No one buys it. And I don't care if you don't like that the FBI's, credibility is in the tubes. It's not your fault that the FBI's credibility is in the tubes, but you're not helping it now. Okay, that's the problem. You're not helping it get better by trying to keep these things under wraps and not going after things that you should be going after. All of this stuff needs to be made public. Okay, I don't care what the result of it is. You just need to do it. Okay, if it damages something, it damages the credibility of the FBI. What credibility? What credibility do you have? Okay, this is the same organization that for years has been spying on Americans. For years, they were trying to cover things up. For years, they were prosecuting the president of the United States. They opened counterintelligence against the president of the United States. There is no credibility left. You got to start over somewhere. And the only way you start over is by releasing stuff about stuff like this in super important cases. One of the things they're doing right now is they're going really, really hard against the fentanyl. They're going really, really hard picking up violent criminals. That's all great stuff. Good stuff you should be doing. But here's the problem, though. Okay. The problem is that's what the FBI is supposed to do. That is the baseline. The baseline is you prosecute criminals. You prosecute the people that should be prosecuted. But you're never going to rebuild the credibility of an institution by just doing the baseline of what the institution was built for in the first place. Okay. You have to go back and address the problems and address the true corruption that exists within the agency. If you don't address it and you don't make it public and you don't go after the people that caused it in the first place, then no one is ever going to trust the institution ever again. And it'll be even worse if you do stuff like this, where you've got this scenario and the moment that this comes out, then they say, well, look, we've already done all this. Look at all the stuff we've done. That doesn't help you. It doesn't help you. It makes it look worse because it makes it look like you were pressured into releasing it in the first place. That's what it makes it look like. So it's not a win for you. It's not a win for you coming out and saying, well, we did all this. We did it. What are you talking about? Like, well, look at all the investigating we did. Good for you. Why don't we know about that already? That's the problem. And they got to fix it. If they want to get any credibility back at all, they're going to have to fix it, because if you don't, I think that we've already got other theories, and that people are going to fill that theory that void of what the real information is with whatever they can find. And it turns out people are pretty good at it. People are pretty good at finding this information. There's a lot of interesting stuff that's been coming up now. A lot of people are starting to take notice on this, and people are going to start digging back into this. And there's a lot of people who already did a lot of investigating into this before. So no one is satisfied with random kid from Pennsylvania climbs on roof and nearly takes out president. Okay, not satisfying story. Come up with a better one and actually answer the question, because you're just lying. I mean, maybe you're not lying. Maybe Cash is being told this is what we have and they review all of it. But listen, Cash and all of these other people that are involved in this, I don't care if you've been told, okay? Do it again. Do it yourself. Bring in outside people that aren't part of the FBI to do the investigation, give them security clearances, and have them go over the information and look for falsities in it, okay? Because I guarantee you'll find it. I guarantee you'll find some of that information.
And Walter,
just put your hand up when you want to talk, dude. This is a show. Guys, by the way, this is the Political Theater. Thank you guys for showing up here this evening. Make sure you guys share this space out. If you are here joining us on Rumble, YouTube, Substack, wherever you guys may be, make sure you guys share the link out and people know that we are live. Thank you guys for being here this evening. We got a ton of other stuff to talk about, so what I do want to stick on this topic for at least a little bit longer, get a couple comments from people. If you would like to join and make comments, you can always come up here and join the space. Just come up here and request, and you can put your hand up and have a question, or you can ask me anything else if you don't want to talk about this topic. We can probably stick on this topic for another 5-10 minutes before we got to move on to something else. Okay, Annan, what's up, man?
yes, first of all, my bad, Walter. But I'll just go ahead and skip past that. So, like, this is the thing too. Is like we were talking about. It's like we're tired of the agencies being reactive, where they're like trying to they get called out, so now they're just being reactive on every single thing. And we're looking at the evidence that's coming forward, and it's like, how could you have not been proactive? How did you miss this? Like, I don't want to hear your excuses of like, oh, this is how we did this. It's like, we can all be proactive, and you guys just aren't doing it at some point. So like, I I feel like everybody in this room, we expect like our federal agencies, when we're talking about FBI, DEA, CIA, we're expecting them to be at the top when we're talking about intelligence. So I want you guys to be proactive, and I don't want you to have to be reactive to just us on the internet saying like, how did you miss this?
Well, I mean, here's the deal is that they didn't miss it. And that's what the problem is. Okay. Like, and they didn't miss it because, Tucker didn't even bring this up in the entire clip that he put out today. He didn't even bring this up, but he mentions it just briefly, but everyone kind of just glosses over it because what did they say? The YouTube channel that he got these comments from was taken down within 24 hours. Why? Because they knew it was his. Of course they knew it was his. That's why they took it down. So you're trying to tell us, oh, he didn't have this. We don't know if it was his social media profile, but within 24 hours of the assassination attempt, the entire thing was taken off the internet and all the comments were scrubbed. Oh, come on. Come on. Like, really? Like, you want us to buy that? Like, it's so obvious. It's so obvious. It's so clear. And you even mentioned that there's another statement from a source close to it that they said, well, they're reviewing an FBI YouTube channel that could have been associated. It wasn't could have. You knew it was his. That's why you took it offline. That's why you took it down so fast. So let's stop playing this game. Okay, let's stop playing this game and expecting that the people that are out here that are actually journalists and actually investigators aren't going to go look into this. You're fooling yourselves. Someone's going to go look into it because you haven't answered the questions yet. We're 10 months into this administration, and no one has had any update on this case. Of course, people are going to look at it. We expected that when you came in, the things were going to be answered, and they were going to be answered quickly. We're going to put a whole team of people on it. And I don't want to hear that it was 500-something people. Sounds to me 500 people went over and looked over at all the files that they'd already done and said, yeah, it looks like we did a great job. I mean, that's what it looks like to me. I mean, that's what it sounds like. Okay, so I don't care if you don't like it and you don't want people to criticize you for it. You aren't answering the questions, so don't be surprised when people come out and try to answer it on their own, because people are going to. And that's not to be something surprising at all. I mean, okay, Tommy Casanova, you came up here. What's up, buddy?
Oh, hey, how's it going, Walter? You actually caught me a little off guard. I was preparing my thoughts, but I did put in the purple pill something that has been bothering me since Charlie Kirk's assassination is the lack of Overwatch. And any open air event like that, it's standard operating procedure to actually have Overwatch and for targets on rooftops and windows, and I just think it was a preventable security failure. and I've not been able to get that off my mind since it happened. And I think some of these explanations are far simpler. In a country with hundreds of millions of people, I do kind of accept the prevailing narrative that crazy young kids radicalized by far left ideology, with the rhetoric that's been thrown at MAGA conservatives, Trump, for the last decade. I think it just makes sense that you get these radical crazies that are coming out of the woodworks.
You see, and this is, I agree with that idea. And this is actually like my original comments and thoughts on this when this happened was that, it's very possible that it was intentional incompetence by the Biden administration. Okay. So intentionally they reduced the security to the point that one of those radical crazies could get into a scenario like that. They could get into a scenario like that. But
I accept that. Yeah.
That's what my initial premise was. But the problem is with the new stuff that Tucker brings out here today, it kind of leans in the opposite direction, that this could have been an orchestrated attempt. Okay, this is what my point is. This is where I was going with this in the beginning. I don't know how long you've been in here, Tommy, but I'll reiterate the point. My point is that it's very possible that our intelligence agencies that despise President Trump, that they've always hated him, they always wanted to get rid of him, that all the entire forces of the previous government were trying to stop him, and with whatever they could possibly do to stop him, if they were willing to orchestrate a hit on Trump to actually have it happen, what would the next phase after they succeed be? Okay, and this is where I think it gets into the point where I'm talking about with Iran. Okay, if the intention was that Trump gets assassinated and then you pin it on Iran, okay, who would the next front runner for president be? Nikki Haley. Raytheon Haley would have been the next front runner for the president of the United States, because they would have pinned it on Biden, saying his incompetent government didn't manage to stop the assassination of a former president. They failed to stop the assassination, so Biden loses. Nikki Haley's president. They blame Iran. We go to war with Iran to avenge Trump. I mean, it's not an illogical conclusion, is what my point is. Okay, so there are several options here of what it could be. The one option was the one that you just brought up a second ago, the one that I originally agreed with. But now that you look at a couple of other data points on this, why there was a foreign group, a foreign national, terrorist organization, this guy that is linked to something like that somehow had contact with him. And then you look at all of the other security failures, you look at all the other strange pieces of evidence, the fact that they cremated the body 10 days after after all of that stuff leads you to a different conclusion than it was just some crazy kid. And I think that's why it's worth talking about. So, there's multiple theories of what it could be. But again, the only reason we have theories is because they won't show us. If you really had the 1,000% proof, why don't you just release it? Okay? Like if you have the DNA, you have the tox screens, you have all the autopsy information, and it was double confirmed, not just by one person, but by an independent group. But it doesn't sound like you can, because it sounds to me like you cremated the body within 10 days. Okay, if that's true, in which it is true, that came out from Clay Higgins, that's from a member of Congress that had that revealed to the public. Okay, like the body of a person that nearly assassinated the president of the United States, I would feel like that thing would still be sitting in the morgue right now for analysis. Come on. I don't think that anybody believes that is a normal operating procedure, and which is why it all leads into some sort of plot. And I don't think I disagree with it, because it never made sense to me that this kid managed to get away with it, even if they were intentionally incompetent to the point that they allowed somebody to get close. The problem is that the people in the crowd of people is around yelling, "Hey, there's a dude up there with a gun. Hey, police, Secret Service, look at dude on roof with gun," and he still managed to get a shot off. Okay? Like, come on. I mean, it's too much. It's too much to be that obvious, and too much to be just, this crazy kid. Okay? Like, if there wasn't all the additional information around it, all the additional problems with this story, then maybe I would go back and lean back into the idea of what I thought before, which is what your thought was, which is what my original idea was. Well, they intentionally reduced his security so much that eventually this was bound to happen in the first place, which is what I had landed on before. But
yeah, I also have another take on it.
Go ahead.
So because I've been thinking about this for a long time, and you think about just for the average Americans, right? We try to elect people, send them to DC, and have them act in our best interest, right? But I'm 47, and most of us under the age of 50 has literally saw our liberties eroded over decades of time, our sovereignty eroded. We're all being turned into serfs, like permanent debt, like we're just like this debt trap, right? And I think that our domestic enemies in the United States are the oligopolies that control our economy. The fact that we do not have as much control over monetary policy through the Federal Reserve as we should. And when I think about this, I think it gives a perfect opportunity, because while everyone is talking about these topics, they're not focusing on, like, one right now. My concern is we got 353 days until the midterms, right? So my concern is I don't want MAGA to be fractured by this. I want to win hearts and minds, and I want to try to keep everybody focused, their eye on the ball, because I think right now, if we get distracted by, because look at what mainstream media is, it's inundating us with, right? I don't trust mainstream media. So anything mainstream media is trying to tell me to look at, I'm going to try to look at, well, what are they not talking about? And you know what they're really not talking about right now? I want hard KPIs on how many people are getting deported. I want to know the details of the 17,000 CDL licenses that California stripped away, because I think that's one of the biggest stories in American history about basically migration replacement in the United States.
Listen to me. That story is super important. I do want to, like, there's a number of other topics we're going to get into this evening, Tommy, and we'll get into some of the stuff that you just mentioned. But I do want to stick on this for a bit, because one, the 17,000 CDLs, I saw that earlier and I thought, fantastic. Look at that. President Trump just created 17,000 American jobs. Wow. Good job, President Trump. Fantastic. Everyone should have sought that immediately. Okay. Now, I have somebody up here that I want to talk to about this, because Thomas Speciale is a former intelligence officer. Thomas, I don't know how much you listened to of my theory when I started bringing this up in the first place, but I'd love to get your take on all this, because this is some pretty interesting stuff that's come out today.
Hey, Walter. I haven't watched the entire Tucker Carlson thing, but some of the things that came out of that I think are very, very interesting. There appears to be, based on what I have seen from Tucker Carlson's report, what looks to be what would be called a cyber recruitment. In other words, you spot and assess for somebody who's vulnerable to be mobilized to violence. This is this Crooks guy saying somebody needs to do something, blah blah blah, and somebody bumps them, a cyber bump, to essentially engage with them in public, and then Tom Crooks disappears kind of from social media. It looks to me like whoever this Willie Tepes person is, may have taken them off public social media and putting them in.
That was immediately my thought, Thomas.
They invite them to come into a sort of a private communication, and then real tradecraft would be that they would take them from there. They would take them into the dark web. They would take them into some other sort of encrypted communication. The things that have always been interesting to me about the Crooks situation is that there was obvious tradecraft that was used by this kid who otherwise wouldn't have known, perhaps, how to make these IEDs, where to set up his position, to use drones to recon the area, to use range finders to determine the distance. That kind of stuff is the kind of thing that you would essentially train somebody to do. And you can do that training remotely today with the internet. So this whole thing about Willie Tepes, Tom Crooks disappearing from his YouTube postings, and then all of a sudden showing up at a rally and being able to take this shot. I think that what a lot of people are kind of missing is the fact that, were it not for the fact that Donald Trump, and I'm a professional firearms instructor. I teach people how to shoot. And my wife, with very minimal training, a non-shooter with very minimal training, could make a 100-meter shot, 130-meter shot, and especially with a properly zeroed rifle, would have been able to make that shot. The only reason that Donald Trump was not killed on that day in front of the entire world was the fact that Donald Trump turned his head at the last moment, right when that very first well-aimed shot was taken.
Yep.
So to me, all of the tradecraft that went into this person taking the shot is the story. We don't know yet whether or not any of that is true. There's nothing confirming that this person was trained by somebody. But this information about this Willie Tepes guy perhaps doing a cyber recruitment is very, very interesting.
Yeah, and Thomas, this is the point, that the cyber recruitment, because I've been involved in looking into some, extremist groups online and infiltrating some of them. Back in 2020, I was working to try and get within the group that they called the Boogaloo people. I wasn't trying to do that. And this is the way that it works. You recruit people. The way that it works is they get people in the conversations in a Facebook group or something else, or a public forum, and then they send you a private message, say, hey, join this group. I think you'll find it interesting. And then that's where it starts moving in that direction. And it's an obvious method of doing that. And the moment I saw those two messages, there's another account on X. I don't know if you guys follow BX on X, and she does a lot of looking into a group called the 764 Network, which is an accelerationist group that targets essentially high schoolers and kids. And I asked her, I said, what do you think about this? Do you think it's 764? She said, no, it doesn't look like 764, but it does look like it could be, foreign Antifa or something like that that are involved in this. And that's exactly what Tucker said. Tucker said that it was a foreign Antifa group. And now if you go over to look at 0 Hour's account, he's talking about this guy, and he's already pulled all his information. So again, this to me looks exactly like a cyber recruitment. That's exactly what it looks like.
It looks like a cyber recruitment, and they could have provided encrypted guidance. And the funny thing is, it doesn't have to be. People don't understand. It doesn't have to be a nation state. It doesn't have to be Iran. It doesn't have to be Russia. It could be anybody. And going back in time a little bit, one of the things, Walter, that I've told you about is that I, as the senior intelligence collection strategist for domestic extremism, I wrote a collection emphasis message, essentially telling our collection community to be looking at these organizations. And what I got from Tucker's thing was that this could have been like a neo-Nazi type group or some kind of a Nazi group. And the victim of the recruitment does not necessarily have to know who it is that's giving them the information. They could have essentially run like a false flag and said, hey, they could have said they're any organization, and this kid might not have known who that was. So my ultimate point is, there is some very suspicious cyber activity that went into this kid's preparation. I don't necessarily think it's like an MK Ultra thing, but it could be just a foreign nefarious actor that was taking advantage of somebody who was vulnerable to being recruited. And all you got to do is give the guy, a couple $1,000 and he might pull the trigger on something like this.
Hey, Thomas, let me ask. So obviously, you know what security is. So physical security, whenever looking at that, have you heard of depth of defense?
What is it?
Depth of defense.
No, I haven't heard that.
So and hold on a minute here. So sorry. I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you, dude, but this is actually a show that gets published. So I'm trying to talk to Thomas here for a minute here. So, Thomas, the entire intention of the recruitment here, like, this is why I think that this deserves a lot more scrutiny. Okay, like if there was a recruitment strategy and it was used by somebody and he was given tradecraft, which I agree with you, there was tradecraft involved. All of that stuff reeks of tradecraft. But the other part of it is the cover-up aspect. And the cover-up aspect, I think, is the more interesting aspect to me, because it's very clear that the FBI was not honest with us from the beginning on this case. And now you come all the way forward to where we are now. And now after this new information comes out, Cash gives this big, long response saying how many people they interviewed and all this stuff. But the question I have is, why wasn't that already known? Why are we just now hearing about this after this information comes out? Like, I don't understand. So it doesn't make any sense to me why we just now hear about this after all of this stuff comes out and after Tucker finally releases this big interview, or this not interview, this big piece talking about this. Why are we just now hearing about it? And why aren't the tox screens released? Why aren't the forensic reports released? Why don't we have all this stuff? Those are the questions we need to answer, and I think that we deserve answers to them.
Yeah, I think I'm less concerned, Walter, about the tox screens, because I think that that this Crooks guy had already, if those are actually his posts, he had publicly demonstrated a a violent extremist level of ideology that could have been preyed upon by anybody. So it doesn't have to involve any kind of drugs or anything like that. It doesn't require that, as long as the person was mentally vulnerable to being recruited, and then ultimately uh, given essentially what would be considered like secret techniques or whatever to enable him to do it. The fact I'm going to land here. The fact that the 9-volt batteries are not in the remote detonators, that is a level of tradecraft used by ISIS and stuff like that. So that tradecraft exists. The reason you don't put your 9-volt battery in your detonator until you're ready to hit the button is because you don't want to inadvertently detonate the IED. And so the fact that the 9 volts were out of the remote detonators, to me, is a very high level of tradecraft that this kid was using, and rangefinders, drones.
Yeah, it reeks of all that. It reeks of all that.
Of some kind of involvement by somebody other than this kid.
Yeah, and further than that, I mean, again, to me, going into the cover up part of this is where I can't get over the fact that we just don't have enough information to be able to tell. We're forced to fill the void on our own. Is, I guess, the biggest problem. Really, the cover up is clear. They didn't tell us all this information. They had months before before President Trump to get into office. They had months to cover this up. Okay, like that's what my statement was at the beginning of all this, is that the moment that this happened, the moment they missed, because they missed only by a couple millimeters, people, the moment they missed, they then instantly had that amount of time between then and the time Trump was in office, put into office, to try and cover this up as best they could. And that's why I think that we deserve a little bit more than just, well, we did all this interviews and we determined that he was just a lone wolf. Like, sorry, guys, no one's buying that crap anymore. Okay? Like, no one's going to buy that. You're going to have to prove it. Okay? And I think we deserve the proof, is what my argument is here. I don't see why we wouldn't deserve the proof. Why not? Why are we not allowed to see exactly what's going on? I think that this is just something that we need more transparency out of the FBI. We need more transparency out of everybody. And I understand that we have two people in there that are supposed to be, like Cash and Dan. Everyone wanted these people in there. And I trust Dan more than, I don't know Cash that well. I never really paid much attention to him before this all happened, before he moved into this position. I trust Dan Bongino 100%. But at the same time, if he's been given the information from the people in the FBI and they gave them all of the cover-up information, said, say, look, here's all our cover-up information. It's great. This is the best cover-up we could do in 8 months. I mean, to me, that's why I said that there's a problem here. And I think the fact that Tucker, when he released this today, you go look into the information, this is why you have to be fully transparent with what's going on. And the fact that you haven't is what led us to this situation in the first place. Okay, I've got a couple other people that want to come up here and join the stage. Go ahead, Thomas.
Just real quick, the thing that I would add to that is if you read my Inside the FBI's Domestic Terrorism Strategy report, one of the findings that I had that essentially led up to the events of January 6th is that a lack of government transparency by the government leads to conspiracy theories and a distrust of the government. So the way we fix that is that they stop overclassifying things that are sort of leaking out through common sense and through open source research and through independent research. The way you prevent that, essentially prevent the deterioration of trust in the government, is by being open and honest about these things that the American people are asking about. So regardless of whatever the reason is that they're not telling us because it's classified or whatever, which is going to be the excuse they're going to use, is that this information is classified, all that does is deteriorate the American people's trust in the government. And we've got to stop doing that, because the American people, in particular the patriots, the people that love the country, are losing faith in their government. And the more and more they do that, the more vulnerable we become to nefarious actors outside the country that are preying on that division and distrust of our government. So we've got to stop keeping secrets of things that the American people can see there's a problem. You've got to answer these questions, because if they don't, all it does is lead to more and more distrust of our own government.
And that's exactly right, Thomas. And this is what I've been saying for a while now, is that if you don't answer the questions, the result of that is, it's not that people just say, well, you know what? We trust you because we like you. No, that's not how this works. Just because we like you doesn't mean we trust our government. Just because we like the people that are in charge does not mean we trust our government. You have to prove it. You have to be radically transparent. You can't just be sort of transparent. You have to dump it all out there and just put it out there and say, hey, look, this is what we were given. If that's the case, if this is what happened, okay? So if they came into office, if they came into their positions and they were given all of this information and said, hey, this is what we were given. This is what we were given. And they just show that to the American people. Then you can say, this is what we have, and this is the conclusions we came to with what you gave us. That's one way you can do it. Okay, like if you want to be this way, and you want to say this is the result that we still think he's a lone gunman, then show us in the documents everything that proves that it is the lone gunman. Okay, you have to do that. You can't just spoon feed us and say, hey, this is what we're saying. Just you have to go along with it because you trust us, don't you? You like us. Listen, I don't care. That doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Even if you do think that there's a lot of people who trust you and like you, you're not going to convince the people that think that there's something more in this situation. You're not going to convince them that that's true just because we like you. Okay, that's not going to be how this works, because it doesn't matter how much we like you personally. It doesn't matter how much credibility you had before you got there. The problem is not that. The problem is that the organization that is surrounding you, we think is corrupt and lying to us. Okay, that's the problem. And they have lied to us about lots of stuff for a really long time. So we're not just going to accept it. You're going to have to show your work. That's just it. There's no other way around it. And I agree with you entirely that the overclassification of things is how we got here in the first place. That's one of the biggest problems. I mean, I think we learned from when they released the JFK files, the amount of things that they had classified in those files were ridiculous. I mean, they're just absurd. The amount of things that they had classified in there was public news articles that they had photocopied and stuffed in there. And they're like, this is classified in the JFK files. Like, oh yeah, we needed to keep that under lock and key for 60 years. It's a public news article. I mean, why? And this is the same problem. I've had this argument a couple times with former government employees or current government employees, and they say things along the lines of, well, the American people, you don't understand it really, you can't tell that to the public. That's too much for them. It's like, look, I'm tired of bureaucrats in D.C., no matter what position they're in. I'm tired of them trying to tell me what I can and cannot handle. I'm an American citizen. Give us the damn information and shut up. Okay, we'll make our own determination whether we can handle it or not. How about you just give it to us in the damn first place? Okay, I don't want to hear it anymore. The only things I think they need to be fully classified are current counterintelligence operations against foreign powers. That should be classified. Outside of that, anything that's done domestically, put that stuff on public chains so everybody can see it every single day of the week. When the investigation ends, should publish it directly to the website. Say, hey, this is the investigation. These are the steps. This is how we came to those conclusions. This is why we did it this way. And if you don't do that, you're still not going to get any trust back. Okay, you're trying to restore the faith in an institution that people despise. Okay, that's what you don't understand. People despise the FBI. Okay, it's not like they have a great stellar reputation. They don't. Their reputation is in the toilet. Their reputation is gone. It has no reputation. The only way you restore it is with what I thought we were going to do, which was radical transparency. Radical transparency means to me, we don't have to wait around 8 bazillion years for us to finally get the results of a story, and then finally someone else releases something on a story, and then you tell us, well, look, no, we did all this. That's not radical transparency to me. Okay? It's not. That is sort of transparency after someone forced your hand.
Walter, the way I would explain it is this. Active operations and active investigations that have not yet resulted in either an indictment or a conviction should not, those things were fine. The American people would be totally fine with those things not being made public. It's once you make an indictment or once the operation is over, if an American citizen asks the question, any American citizen says, what is going on with X, Y, and Z? We do not live in a free society if they do not disclose that information. So it's kind of like your kids. If they're old enough to ask, then they're old enough to know the truth. And that is the mistake. The bureaucracy, in particular the intelligence community, and the FBI is not really an intelligence organization. They're cops that pretend like they're spies. They're not. They're very poorly trained. They don't do a good job of this. And that is why they've gotten themselves in a noose so many times, because they pretend to be spies. But the reality is that if we're old enough to ask, then we're old enough to know it. And because they keep things a secret, that on the surface we can see that it happened, that is why people don't trust them, because they covered up Waco, Texas. They covered up Ruby Ridge. They covered up information about the Oklahoma City bombing.
That's right.
And all that does is turn the American people against them. We do not live in a free society if our own government is not answerable to the people. We can't be what we say we are if they're going to keep these things a secret from us. And in their minds, they're thinking this is for their own best, their own good.
That's right.
Well, those days are over. Those days are over. The age of the internet, open source, AI, the data processing power of the American citizen, the global communication, these things have all made it very almost impossible for people to keep secrets the way they used to by just deny. That no longer works, because what deny results in is distrust. And ultimately what that does is that creates a level of fragility in our society where the American people may rise up against the government. And we can't afford that. Those days are over.
Yeah. And this is, again, what I was saying to you for the most of this argument is that the problem is you can't expect the American people today, the people that there's so many people on the internet right now, they know everything about this case. They know every single detail to the letter, to the minute, to the word, to the things that you've said. They remember. I guarantee you, there are a set of sleuths out there that have a full transcript of every single thing Christopher Wray has said on this case, from the beginning of it to the very end when he was still in office. I know that there's multiple people that probably already have that. Okay. That's the problem. You can't expect that people don't know this stuff, because every single thing that was ever put out into public record on that, people know it. Not only do they know it, they are going to call you on it if you don't answer it properly. And that's exactly what happened here. Because the FBI, they have some new rapid response account. Okay, they have some new rapid response account that they immediately, when Tucker said, the FBI said they didn't have any online footprint, and they said, no, we didn't. We never said that. And then within 15 minutes, someone went and pulled the YouTube clip and said, yes, you did. There it is. You just lied. There's your problem. Okay. And this is where we have to get to the point where you can't get yourselves caught up in this. You can't continue to get yourself caught up in this constant battle with the American people of what you said or what you didn't say. I understand that the previous administration was corrupt. I understand that the previous people that was running the FBI were corrupt. I get it. I know and I trust that you guys want to try and get stuff done. But trying to come around these things and say, oh, people are just upset about what's happening. And we did an investigation. See, look, we did it. Guys, stop. Stop screwing around. Put it all out there, or you're just going to get thrown down the wolves and nobody's going to trust you at all. And everyone's going to say old FBI, same as new FBI. They're not going to give a damn who's in charge because you're working with an institution that nobody trusts. That's the problem. That's the real problem. You're working with an institution nobody trusts, and they don't care who's in charge. They'll just say, nope, looks like the FBI covered it up, and they managed to hide it from the top-level leadership. Even if they trust the two top people, they trust Cash and Dan 100%, even if they do, that doesn't matter. That's not going to save them from the problems with the institution, because the institution itself, they're not going to trust it. They're just not. It's not going to work. Okay, we've got a couple new people up here on stage. Cyrus S., what is happening, my friend?
Yeah, I totally agree with you guys. The overclassification of many of these investigations and many of the, national security issues is really a major cause of all these conspiracy theories that, resulted in a distrust in the system, in the government. And these conspiracy theories are really hurting this country. I mean, I'm going back to 9/11 conspiracy theories because they, covered up so much of stuff about the Russian role, the Iranian role in 9/11, all of those, and they really caused major distrust in the government, distrust in the military, distrust in the role the United States was playing, and of course they screwed up the wars, but that was the conspiracy theories played a big role in basically creating a kind of anti-government movement that both the radical left and certain people on the right are exploiting now. And the adversary is also taking advantage of that. So, there must be, whenever there's no sources or methods being exposed, they should be, very transparent about it.
That's right. One of the things I think I was hoping that this is something that the new administration was going to do when they came in is I have a huge problem with the FOIA request. The Freedom of Information Act was supposed to be designed so that American citizens could request information from their government easily. That's not how it works. Okay. Normally now FOIAs, I don't know how many of you have filed FOIA requests, but during the Biden administration, I probably filed 100 of them and I never got a single one through. Essentially, the only way you get FOIAs through now, you have to have a law firm. The law firm has to know the name or the title of the document that you're looking for, and then you have to go through a court and directly request it. And using a FOIA request, going through the court system, it's very expensive. It is not simple. They don't make it easy. You know what a FOIA request should be? A FOIA request should be a website that you go in there and say, I'm looking for documents on this, and you should be able to request it, and it arrives at your house or it arrives in an email within 15 seconds, and the only thing it redacts is names, and if there's super classified information in that, then that it redacts it automatically. Okay, then that's fine. If that has to be done, then fine. But it should be simple. It should be easy. Everybody should be able to request information from their government whenever they want it, however they want it, whenever they need it. I mean, that should be the way that FOIAs work. And it's infuriating to me that it's been such a problem that FOIAs don't work really well and that they're not actually something that happens. It's stupid. It shouldn't be the way it works.
Hey, Walt, I have, just to give you an example, I have filed just on my own weaponization case against me personally as somebody with a TSSCI clearance. I have probably filed 50 to 70 FOIAs directly related to myself. Every other organization, except for the FBI, has complied with the FOIAs. The FBI ran a 2.5-year investigation into me. I have personally seen with my own eyes the eGuardian file that has 89 PDFs in it about me personally. I have filed a FOIA with FBI and a FOIA with DOJ, specifically requesting my file on an investigation that was closed, and I know it was closed, and yet they have not given me the contents of those FOIAs. So your point is 100% on track. They literally ignore it unless you sue them. And I'm going to have to do that if they don't provide it, because I've seen it. I know they exist, and I'm going to be relentless until I get it. But most American citizens do not have the level of knowledge that I have of what specifically to ask for, where to ask for the information, etc. And so that's how they get around That's how they get around ignoring a normal American's FOIA, because the American doesn't know, a regular citizen doesn't know what to ask for. And so, your point, I am dealing with it personally. It is a fact. They do not, and these are investigations of me personally that I know are closed. And yet they have not given me the information yet. And it's because, here's why, and I know why. Because what they did was an investigation without a predicate of a crime. So they know when they provide that FOIA, I have evidence of a civil rights violation, a violation of my First Amendment rights, and probably my Fourth Amendment rights. And so they don't want to provide that because they know they're going to be in a civil rights lawsuit. And that's why the FBI does not comply with FOIAs. And I have a very close personal friend who works at FBI who has basically said the FBI deliberately does not comply with FOIAs because they know that when they do it, they're going to be revealing essentially the unconstitutional activities that the FBI has perpetrated against so many Americans. Every one of the J6ers probably has a civil rights violation, and we're talking thousands of civil rights violations. We're looking at, what, $1 billion, $2 billion. The whole budget of the FBI would be taken up with these civil rights violations if they get sued. And so you're 100% correct. And I have personally seen the file they are not giving me.
Well,
I haven't read
it's not just the FBI that does this, Thomas. So, for I'll give you one example, and we can go to some other hands here because we do have other speakers. But there is one story I'll tell you on the last time I filed a FOIA request and how quickly it was denied. So a couple of years ago, out here in Springfield, Ohio, there was a bus accident. Okay, and this is I don't know if you guys know this story. I've told this story on the show before, but I'll tell the new audience anyway. So there was a bus accident that happened out here, and it was only a couple miles from me, and I went there because I saw all the ambulances go by, and it was less than a mile from me, so I went and saw what was going on. And a Haitian immigrant had flipped a school bus, killed a kid, sent 26 kids to the hospital. One child lost an arm or a leg. I can't remember which one it was. One kid died. The guy had a Mexican driver's license, okay? He had a Mexican driver's license, and I heard the state trooper say that when I was standing there. So my immediate thought was, is he here legally? So what did I do is I called DHS, and I've got contacts within DHS, and I got the correct numbers and the names for the forms, and I got the guy's name from the cops, and I asked specifically, I wanted to know nothing about his personal information. I didn't want anything personal about him. I wanted to know his current immigration status. Is he here legally? Is he here on a visa? Is his visa active? Is it active or is it not? And I asked specifically for those forms, the numbers on those forms, and I was denied almost immediately for the very simple purposes of, well, it's private information. I was denied. And I knew that guy was here illegally. Breitbart actually got the story shortly after that. They called us, they got a source within DHS that confirmed it for them, and he was an illegal immigrant. But that's just another example of his things. Why is that classified? Why are you not allowing people to find that information out? And of all things, why is it possible that you can't request to figure out if someone's here legally or not? That should be something that you should be able to request instantaneously. I don't even think you should have a FOIA request. That should be something you should be able to look up just on your own, just by going to DHS's website. That shouldn't be something that needs a FOIA. That should be something anybody should be able to figure out instantaneously when they're dealing with somebody. Is this person a legal immigrant? Do I need to call ICE? That should be common information, and the fact that it's not and the fact that they hid it was unbelievable to me. Okay, so I got a couple other people up here on stage. Stephanie B., what is happening?
Hi, everyone. Great space. This is such a big day for all the information coming out. And, by the way, if you file a FOIA request, it's basically like saying, hello, look at me. I'm looking for this information. So they can put you on a blacklist and block you and make sure you never get it. It's almost like the opposite of what you're trying to do, apparently. But this is the thing. And, I think all of us had high hopes or have high hopes for Kash Patel. And it seems like the changing of the guard between Biden and Trump, it was this big, he was going to go in and nuke the FBI, but it almost seems like the minute he got in there, he was neutered. And, I'm basically just going to reiterate the things that we've all said, but coming from a normie perspective, okay, I sit in all of the, do all the research, all these things, connect the dots. But the more like Anon said, that they are reactive rather than proactive, it is inexcusable. It's like egg on their face and it makes people trust them less. And if anybody cannot look at, it's almost like deja vu. We look back at the RFK, JFK assassinations and then MLK. It's like they were connected in some kind of way, even if they weren't directly connected. You know that there was more to it. And now we're looking at the same thing happening with Trump, the first two assassination attempts. And then, I'm sorry, but Charlie Kirk, I still to this day cannot wrap my head around how that happened because it was so almost like, copy, paste, repeat from the Trump assassination attempt in Butler. And so the
Well,
more that the FBI.
the difference on something for Charlie Kirk, okay, I'll disagree that it's the same thing because a political commentator and a political person like that, we haven't had a assassination of somebody of like that in the country essentially the 1970s. So there's a big difference
True.
between that and someone like the president of the United States, who is the current front runner to be the president of the United States. That is a big, big difference between a political commentator and the current president of the United States. That's a massive difference. There's no real comparison between the two. So I just want to make that one comment on that. But you are correct. I do agree that there are problems again with what's going on at the FBI, and I don't care if they don't like it and they don't want to be told that. The problem is that the transparency isn't going to cut it for people. You're going to have to answer. You're going to have to answer the questions, whether they like it or not. They're going to have to answer to it. And you can't be mad at people just because they don't like your answers. Your answers aren't good enough for us anymore. Okay. You have to show your work. I think that's where we're at now. They're not just going to take the word of the FBI because we like the people that are in charge. That's just not going to work for us. It's not.
And the similarities, that's what I'm saying, just on the surface, like the similarities and the way they're handling it and the excuses that keep coming out, you know, in this day and age, they could not just tell the people and talk to us like we're stupid. Okay, maybe half the public is stupid, man. Just my opinion. Disclaimer, not the opinion of the host. But
No,
we're not
see.
done.
I agree with you. I think it's more like 80 or 90% aren't stupid, are pretty stupid though. So you got to make sure up the numbers there a little bit. There's way more people that are the dumb in the country. Like, I mean, that's just reality. But no, go ahead.
Truth. But and the thing is, like looking at it, if this many people, for Tucker Carlson to come out today and drop this quote unquote bombshell, just in the middle of not even like dropping a bombshell, he just kind of worked it in whatever he was saying. It's like, if he has that information, they have to know that the information is out, and for them not to get ahead of it, it's inexcusable. And the more that they make people not trust them by essentially dropping the ball, it just is not okay. And
it just doesn't help anything. Like it doesn't
right,
help.
it doesn't.
Like the problem is we're in a scenario where we're trying to restore the trust in the FBI. Like I thought that was the intention, right? Like we're trying to bring back public trust in an institution that people do not trust anymore. Okay, like the numbers that show how much the people trust the FBI have plummeted. Okay, like it used to be, it was just like people like me who was like, no, look at Ruby Ridge. These people are lunatics. Like, what are you talking about? Don't trust the FBI. These people are the horrible. Like, I mean, it used to be just me screaming into the wind about that sort of stuff. But now everybody thinks that. And that's a problem. That's a huge problem. Okay, like you got to fix that. People need to trust their own government, at least somewhat. They have to have some sort of faith in their government. They can't, I would much rather it be just me who wants to tell you how much the FBI sucks and how much you shouldn't trust them, okay? I would much prefer that, okay? But that's not the situation we're in anymore. Most people don't trust the FBI. 0 people on the right trust the FBI, okay? Like, I would love to know the poll numbers. Go get me poll numbers of what people think about the FBI on the right now. Go tell me how many people have a high trust in the FBI as a member of the right wing or are Trump supporters. I would love to see those numbers because I guarantee you they are probably not over 10 to 15%. Like I would be very, very surprised if they were. And honestly, does anybody blame them? Okay, you spent years going after every J6er and throwing every grandma in jail, but you can't solve the pipe bomb story, okay? You spend years telling us that all these things that the FBI has the ability to do, but they can't solve the problems that they have. They still can't release the information. They come out with all this stuff, and then this, there's a good comment here on this one of the streams here from someone saying, how much did this cost? And all this stuff with 0 results. I kind of agree with you. You didn't provide results. How much did that cost for you to use 480 FBI employees and do all this, and you got nothing? You got no answers whatsoever? Like, this is why you have to show your work. Okay, like that's what my point is here. You can't get away with this anymore. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work for people. Okay, Jess, the Fiery, you have a hand up. What is happening, Jess?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Yeah, no, I was just thinking about what you said, I don't trust them anymore. Like like maybe years, I mean years ago, maybe they could have been trusted, but you know what? They can't be trusted anymore. Look what's happening with Trump, the J6. Like we all know they were behind it. And they took part in it. And so, yeah, that right there was one thing that.
There's a number of things, Jess. I mean, you can go down the litany of problems. Okay, like here's one thing that people forget about, but it was a big story. But everyone needs to remember, like, okay, the plot against Gretchen Whitmer. Okay, everyone heard about that story, right? Okay, yeah, this plot against Gretchen Whitmer. You know, the guys got off because everybody working with that group was all a member of the FBI. And they were like, no, this is entrapment. Like, the whole team, all of them were all FBI agents. Like, okay. So that's crazy. Go ahead.
Well, it wasn't even so much that they were FBI agents. It was that they were confidential human sources. So everybody involved in the Whitmer assassination attempt was already communicating with the FBI. So it wasn't that they were FBI agents. It's that they were potentially concerned American citizens that had gone forward to the FBI and said, hey, my buddy, whatever, he's acting kind of crazy. And they were reporting on him. And instead of them saying, well, tell him don't do that. Okay. They said, well, just report back to us on what he's planning. The problem is then let's just call him Bubba. Bubba then thinks, because he's, anxiety, depression, and suicidal ideation, and he hates the governor. Okay. Bubba thinks that all his buddies agree with him. Okay. This is a Milgram experiment gone wrong, where the confidential human sources that are communicating with the FBI are essentially giving sort of like psychological justification to the kook bird who thinks that this is a good idea. Okay? That poses a major problem because they then enable the potential attack by not just intervening early and trying to get Bubba some mental health help. Okay?
The number of people that were involved in this was what the ridiculous part was. Like there was 14 people and 12 of them. Yes, 12 of them were working with the FBI and 2 of them weren't. And they were like, "What the hell?" Like, I mean, it was such a ridiculous story.
When you look at it,
it was such a ridiculous story.
Attempts were a fluke of nature that they didn't actually happen. Trump
By the way, this wasn't like it's not just that. Okay, so like the Gretchen thing, it wasn't an assassination attempt; it was a kidnapping attempt. That's what they were going to do. They were going to kidnap the governor because I don't know what are you going to do with her once you got her? Like, I mean, what the hell? Like, I mean, this is the weirdest thing in the world to think like, oh yeah, we're going to kidnap the governor and then what? Like,
keep her.
Just go one layer deeper than that. This seems like a real bad idea, guys. I mean, you're going to kidnap the governor of a state? Like, I mean, what are you going to ransom her? Who are you going to ransom her to? They're just going to kill all of you. But anyway, no, it was literally there's 14 people involved. 12 of them were human sources and working with the FBI. But the thing is that they did trainings. Like they were doing actual active training on how to do this mission. So how were they getting the information on how to do that? The FBI was helping them. The FBI was telling them what to say. Yeah, go along with it. So yeah, they're doing that. So you should make sure you go to all the training. So you trained 12 human sources how to kidnap a governor of a state. Well done, FBI.
And the funny thing, Walt, is the funny thing about that is, and this is the tricky part. This is the how bad the FBI is at this stuff. None of the other 12 people knew that they were
That's
confidential
right.
human sources for the FBI. So they all think they're reporting on all of their friends when in reality, everyone involved is reporting to the FBI.
Except the
About
two poor bastards that were like, oh, what?
correct.
Like,
Correct.
it's so dumb. It's like an episode of like Veep or something. Like, I mean, it's like the FBI. It's like, you know, it's. Did you guys hear about the story? There was I think this came out a couple months ago. Remember it's a FBI arrests themselves in a raid. Like they had their own people arrest their own people because they were trying to do a drug deal. So they bought drugs from a confidential human source from another confidential human source, and then they arrested both of them. It's like, you morons. Like, I mean, like. It's such a lack of communication that none of you knew this was happening. Like, it's unbelievable to me. But it doesn't surprise me. Like, I mean, like, I tell people about my swatting incident, right? So when I was swatted, I was told, okay, call your local FBI office and get in touch with them so you can talk about this. You know, after finally getting through the 400 phone lines before I finally actually date to talk to somebody, I was like, okay, so I'm supposed to report the fact that I was swatted. And the person says, honey, what's a swatted? I was like, oh, shit. I'm screwed. There's no chance. They'll never help me. These people have no idea what I'm talking about. They were completely useless. They don't even know what I was talking about. They had no idea who I was, why I was calling. I was like, do you not understand? Like, the FBI deputy director just said yesterday to contact you, and you said you don't know what I'm talking about. Like, who are you people? Aren't you supposed to be in charge of, like, important things in this country? Turns out you're all just idiots? Great. That makes me real happy and real warm and fuzzy inside that these are the people running our a top level like federal law enforcement agency. We have morons in charge. It's not a great look. It really isn't. So, and I agree with you, Thomas. Like, I think that might be part of the problem, is that maybe the problem is that the FBI has just been filled with morons, and then Cash and Dan are looking around going, oh no. Well, they have no idea what we're doing, and the only people that did know what they were doing were the ones that were covering up everything the previous administration did, and then they all left. Like, that's probably what really happened. They probably all quit. They were like, okay, we finished the cover up. Now we're going to leave them with the morons. All right, everybody get out. Like, I mean, that's like, I want to go look through the retirement numbers. I want to see who the last people to retire right before Christopher Wray left office. I'm curious to see how many of those people were senior level FBI agents, and they were probably the ones that orchestrated the cover up. And they were like, all right, taking our 20 years, we're out of here. We're never going to tell anybody anything we ever did. Goodbye. Like that to me is probably likely at this point.
Do you remember? And I haven't looked at the details of this in a long time, so I'm gonna pull this from memory. Do you remember the guy that went to the weapons buy in the graveyard, and the FBI agent gets killed? And it was apparently that there was two different agencies participating in the weapons buy, and somebody gets killed. And it's basically like a fratricide, because it's our own people trying to sell guns to a guy in a graveyard in the middle of the night. And some guy gets killed who's just trying to do his job, trying to bust some weapons dealer. And it turns out that it was a government on government fratricide type event.
Yeah, I do remember that story. There's all sorts of these ridiculous stories. I mean, it's not just one or two of them. They happen all of the time because the people that are in charge of these places have no communication with each other because they're idiots. I mean, it's obnoxious, but we've gotten really far off topic, guys. We've also gone really far into this. Like it's 11 o'clock. We haven't covered any of the other stuff we were supposed to talk about on the show tonight, but that's okay because this was an important topic for us. But for the last few minutes, we've only got about 10 minutes left in the show, guys. So if there's other people that want to make comments, or if you've got other commentary you'd like to talk about, there was other stories we wanted to talk about. There was other stuff I wanted to go over. There were other clips I wanted to play. I guess we'll just have to move that to another day. Like, well, maybe I'll have a weekend edition of the show. And I'll open up maybe Friday or Sunday morning or Sunday afternoon or something like that, and I'll have an additional show because there was a ton of other stories to talk about today. Obviously, there's some very funny stuff. The founder of Wikipedia stormed out of an interview because no one told him that they called him the co-founder, and he got really mad and ran away because he's so important. He's the founder of Wikipedia. What a hilarious clip. I hope everybody saw that. Well worth looking into. There was also talk about SNAP reform, H-1B reform. There's a number of other stories we didn't manage to get to today. If you have other comments you'd like to talk about on this, specifically on the Thomas Crooks Crooks story and the Tucker Carlson story. I'd urge you to go back to the beginning of this show. You can always watch the show again. You can always replay it. There is a video version of this show that is published on X.com, and you can go to my page at WC Dispatch if you want to watch it there. But it also does get published again on Spotify the next day and Apple the next day. It's also streaming on YouTube and Rumble, so make sure you guys follow those links if you want to check the show out after the show. And if you guys want to come up here and join us for the final bit of the show, you can come up and go to X.com, go at WC Dispatch, and join the show directly. And you can come up here and ask questions, ask whatever you want. You can come up here and argue with me. I can tell you you're stupid, whatever you want me to do. I'm happy to. I'm here, a full service shop. Okay, Zen, come on up here. What you got to say? You have your hand up.
Can you
Yeah,
close us out with one funny clip, Walter? That's my last thing I'm gonna say. Just one.
No,
funny clip
we're
and
gonna do
please,
we're gonna do
private.
comments for him a little bit, Stephanie. Go ahead, Zen.
Yeah, being a military vet, I was in the Army. We have a uniform code of military justice that when you're in basic training, they go through it and you know exactly, the repercussions if you do something wrong, if you spy, whatever, lie about something, get caught doing something illegal. I just wonder sometimes if the DOJ and the Congress and the House have anything equivalent to that. Does anyone know? Because I think they should.
I mean, they have ethics boards that they're supposed to follow, but I don't think any of them actually do a good job of doing so, to be honest with you. I mean, can anybody argue that the FBI has not done anything except run unconstitutional investigations on American citizens for 30 years? Because I think that's all they've ever done. I hate the institution. I think it should be just disassemble it. We'll be okay. I think we'll be just fine. Take those resources and send them to the special crimes units in each one of the states, because they all have them now. We didn't used to have them, but now we have them. And I think the FBI is just, and I'm not sure it's a useful institution at all anymore at this point. Okay, Jack, trying to get your hand up. What's up, bud?
So I don't know if you saw this story with Trump about Marjorie Taylor Greene, that he just rescinded his endorsement and support of her completely.
Well, and that would be because she just released text messages of his with her to the public. Now, I don't know what.
No, that was after he put that post out. That's her response to it.
Well, whatever the problem is, and Marjorie Taylor Greene has made her bed, and she has obviously decided to position herself against the president, and it's not going to work out well for her. Okay, that was a stupid decision on her part, and if she thinks she's as popular as she believes she is, she's wrong. Telling everybody that you're going to get a bill, an H-1B bill, through Congress that'll never pass. Just telling everybody that though is not going to win you enough support to get you through an election, sweetheart. Not a smart move by Marjorie Taylor Greene, but maybe she's not as smart as she thinks she is. Okay, let's see here. Never fear underdog. What's up?
Thank you so much. I only caught the back end of it, but every time I come into one of these rooms with like-minded people like this, I get such rich information. So my opinion is this: the entire system is overstressed. It's broken from the beginning to the end. When J.D. Rockefeller created the trust that later funded the Department of Education, he specifically said that it was to create a nation of workers, not thinkers. And when we see the current condition of what our education system is and what they're not teaching them, we see that this plan of action has been implemented on such a basic and rudimentary level that it made everybody retarded. So when you take a look at some of the stuff that happens in cybersecurity and IT, they do what's called a stress test. They make computers start crunching prime numbers so that it works the processor as hard as it can and they can see how strong it is. Everything about our system, it's failing the stress test. We have officers that are working too many hours, that are stressed out about the work that they have to do on the job. So on both sides of it, you don't even understand what officers have to go through every single day just to show up. And then it does stuff to them psychologically. And over time, it makes them a worse officer because of that trauma. It creates biases and everything else. It creates a whole different tier of system. Then when we start talking about the legal system, attorneys have client lists of like 200 people. If they were broke all those up, they would only get 15 minutes per case to look at somebody's case. That's not justice. I've been representing myself for years now, and that's why. Everything about it, everything has become a repetitive habit. It's just wash and repeat. And that's why we're in the position that we are. Thank you for that moment.
Thanks, Never Fear. Okay, Raw Dog Malone, what's up?
Dude, I'm all right. Dude, so I'm honestly a little nervous because of all the beautiful people in here. You know, there's just a lot of people. You know, but and I don't know how I'm feeling about Epstein stuff in the first place. Blah blah blah, whatever. But but one of them was talking about stuff like the Saudi Arabians being all up in the Las Vegas stuff like that. And here's what I'm wondering, if you got thoughts about this type of thing real quick. And I am nervous, but do you think they're making some sort of plan where when the comedians went to the Riyadh, the comedy thing, they were planning out which guys, because some of them maybe would, which guys maybe would then be able to sacrifice some of their people, right? 'Cause I'm
Okay,
always
all right, hold on. You're jumping around quite a bit, and don't worry about being nervous. Okay, like you're welcome to come on this show at any point. Don't worry about that. But you're jumping around a couple of different ideas here. So what exactly are you talking about? So you went from Epstein to Las Vegas to Riyadh very rapidly here. So pick one and give your point on it.
my bad, sir.
You're
Let
fine,
me
dude.
try
Don't
to.
worry about it.
All right. So in the Epstein emails, which, you know, what do we even think about those in the first place? That's point one. But you don't have to respond to these. This is just my thought tractor. But
So listen. Are you talking about the most recent Epstein emails, the ones the Democrats are releasing currently? Is that what you're
the
talking
junk
about?
coming out, I'm not sure what to think about it, but there's stuff in there, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, there's going to be interesting stuff in there, but the biggest deal, the problem for the Democrats when it comes to the Epstein stuff is that they have shot themselves in the foot because they released information that people already knew, and then they lied about it, trying to say that President Trump somehow, like what was the other thing they say yesterday that they actually had to delete? They said, he attended Thanksgiving with Jeffrey Epstein. It's like, what? Like, what the fuck? Are you? That's the dumbest thing in the world to try and convince people that Epstein and Trump were at Thanksgiving dinner together in 2017. Like, that is so stupid.
Do that, right? If it was nice.
I don't know, Raw Dog Malone. Okay, what is your next question? So what are you talking about with comedians in Riyadh? I don't know what you're talking about there.
All right, in the emails, Epstein was talking about how the crown prince was related to the not related family blood, but related like otherwise to the Las Vegas, which
Well,
was
that's
already.
so. Listen. So, I guess you probably don't know that the investigation going into what happened at the Las Vegas shootings. Like, there's the speculation is actually that the Crown Prince was there and that this was actually some large intelligence operation that went very, very wrong.
And
So,
by the way,
that's not necessarily to do with Epstein. That's a separate issue.
This just brought it to my mind because it was in the emails. So that was just a separate.
Is that true? Is that something? I don't know that. I haven't seen that anywhere in any emails on Epstein that they talked about the Crown Prince and the guy. I don't know that.
After this space, I'll send you what I found, and then if
That's okay. Will you send me, Raw Dog? Send me some of this stuff, and we can talk about it another time. Okay. We'll talk about it another. Like, I don't have a whole lot of time left here, bud. So we're gonna have to keep moving here because we're jumping around 4 different topics in a very complex Epstein Riyadh. Like, we don't have time for all that. So okay, go ahead, Chris.
Quick, I know we don't have a lot of time. But the other problem with the Democrat situation is that they've had the White House for 4 years. And then, of course, the 8 years under Obama. But for 4 years under Biden, they controlled the DOJ. They slapped like 900,000 indictments on the president of the United States. If they had any ounce of the ability to tie Trump to Epstein, they had all these emails, they had all the files, they would have done it. And that's the problem. That's the problem with the entire Democrat narrative, that they now come back and expect the American people to believe that they wouldn't that they had no clue what was in these emails, and they're just now finding out about this, and Epstein was tied to Trump, and it's just like all
Listen,
this
they were
crazy
best friends,
adventure.
Chris. They were best friends. They went to Thanksgiving dinner together in 2017. Everybody knows about it, except there's no photos of it. And this the stupidest thing in the world. Like, these people are such ridiculous clowns. Like, watching the whole Epstein stuff. This is why I got really mad at people earlier this week. And I was mad everyone sitting here arguing, the right sitting here arguing with ourselves when we should just be blasting the left for their blatant lies. I mean, they've spent the past 6 months making Epstein this giant thing for them. It's their number one talking point. Trump is a pedophile. Trump's this. Trump's that. Trump. But you guys are lying. You're useless liars. You're lying about everything. You've always been lying about everything. And now we're not calling on it because we don't want to fight about fucking Candace Owens or something. Like, I mean, it's so stupid. It drives me crazy. Okay, Southern Belle, you can go ahead.
Just real quick, the New York case where Epstein was convicted, Trump provided information to the attorney to prosecute him. Also, Trump kicked him out of Mar-a-Lago because he was playing around with some of the employee young
Yes.
women.
So, and this is the interesting
Yeah.
thing about that, Southern. So, to make a good comment on that, because in the information that the Democrats stupidly released, like the first thing that they put out, the first set of emails that the Democrats oversight, it confirmed that story. It was the stupidest part. Like, that was why I was like, oh my God, how dumb are you people? Like, you literally release an email that says Trump was the dog that didn't bark. By the way, he threw me out of his club, even though I'm not a member. He threw me out. Oh, and then he threw Maxwell out too. But why hasn't he told the police, essentially? That's what the dog that didn't bark means. So it confirms 1,000% the whole thing that Trump was probably involved in the original complaints against Epstein. It's like, how are we not just beating the Democrats over top of the head with that all day long? Like, it's such an obvious thing. It's so stupid. Like, these people deserve to be mocked endlessly for it, and I hope we do so. Okay, guys, we are over time for this show this evening. Thank you guys for being here this evening. This is the Political Theater. We are here weeknights at 9. Now, because we did manage to get to some of the other things we had to talk about this evening, I will probably have a weekend show. Normally, I try and do at least one weekend show, or, if I have the time, I'll throw open for an hour or so. But because there's a ton of other stories to cover, I'll probably have something either late Saturday, or maybe I'll have something on Sunday afternoon. We'll see. But look, check out for this show. You can always follow this account. Just go to @WCDispatch on X.com, and you can always go to WCDispatch.com, and this show is always streamed there, 9 p.m.s weeknights, and we will see you guys next time on the theater. Thank you guys for being here, and I will see you guys next time. Thanks, guys.
Some folks are born with a liberty spark. Their hearts beat red, white, and blue. When the anchors sneer and the cameras bark, they turn the lens right back at you. Truth bound, ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're not the party line sons, no, we ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're the vigilant ones, so. Some folks inherit silk-lined halls, spend our sweat while preaching share. But when the tax man wraps his knuckles raw, their mansions suddenly look bare, impaired. Ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're not their banker-raised hares, no. Ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're the vigilant ones, so. Yeah, some paint stars on press room lies and send the common men to toil. Ask them, how much truth will you trade tonight? They mutter, more noise, more noise, more noise. Ain't for sale, ain't for sale. Not the theater's pawns, friend. It ain't for sale, ain't for sale. We're America's steadfast ones. No, we won't be spun.